just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty.
The Charlie Kirk assassination suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson from Washington County, Utah, was arrested on September 11th after a 33-hour manhunt, following a confession to his father and a roommate, in what should have been a cut-and-dry tragic day in American history, but has only opened up a range of questions due to a lack of solid information and the sloppy handling of the investigation by the FBI. Why does the wink-wink, nod-nod Masonic number 33 keep coming up during press conferences?
In less than 36 hours. 33 to be precise.
Is it incompetence or a cover-up? A mixture of both? Or just another manufactured distraction to keep America's eye off of the ball?
Chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those in the gallery please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk. And the House will be in order.
Where are the pictures of the supposed engraved furry trans bullets showing motive?
And then they come out with a letter that is like ChatGPT. What are the 10 things people don't believe about this crime? And then they end up saying, ChatGPT, write me a letter saying every single one of these things and tie up every loose end, including my lover, my transgender lover. Don't forget my little furry. And don't forget remember when I engraved the bullets? Every single detail that people were finding hard to believe was wrapped up in this note, which there's literally zero Zoomer talk. There's no shorthand. Everything is completely laid out, beginning to end, as a total confession. Look under my keyboard where my note is. Every single part of it that they then will go into court and now read this into evidence. And people say, well, how did that happen? Well, let's go to the note. This explains how he got off the roof, where he went down, he changed his clothes, he left it here, he went into the woods, he ground the thing. I mean, every single question you would ever have is now part of evidence. And now this transgender whack job, who's obviously going to be state's evidence, is going to be there to corroborate it all. It's just completely unbelievable to me.
We don't know if it's him or not.
And why has George Zinn, the first man detained, admitted to aiding Robinson's escape, shouting provocations to create chaos, for which he is now facing charges?
And then I think it was, a 9/12 or something like that, that second plane hit that tower. Immediately chaos. And we just said, that's got to be something. That's terrorist attack or something like that.
I was in very, very close proximity. So I was clear at the east end, and I heard this loud boom. I heard this loud bang. And I thought, this is a gunshot, and there's going to be more of them. I thought it could turn into a mass shooting. So I go to the people closest to me. Everyone's ducking down behind the concrete retaining walls, and some of them were still kind of oblivious, but there were two people that were standing there. Two girls, very goth, very black, and then I just walked, and I stepped up to the side of them, and I said, did that not happen right here? Did you hear that? Was that right here? And they said, yeah, it was just right over there. So they're confirming, yeah, the shooter or wherever that sound came from is right here. The thing that didn't really dawn on me is that they were not running. They were not frightened. In fact, as I stepped up, I heard one of the girls, and they were talking to each other, and they're looking at these kids, looking at the scene down below them of all these people fleeing for their lives. And she says, go F yourselves. The thing that was interesting to me was the people who were clearly very engaged in what was happening, unafraid of being shot themselves while other people are fleeing for their lives, and they have obvious contempt.
And where is the 30-06 round from a Mauser-type bolt-action hunting rifle that is believed to have hit Charlie Kirk?
I am a Marine, scout sniper. I did that for 5 years. I taught ballistics classes. I know it should be fair to assume that the FBI lies to us. I think everybody can agree on that. Let's not take them at their word on anything moving forward, specifically who the shooter is, where the shooter is, and anything from that angle. I would even go as far to say the round or the caliber of the round that the shooter was using.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
And why has there, led by unemployed morons like Jimmy Kimmel been a sustained nationwide Mockingbird media gaslighting campaign regarding Robinson's sexual preferences and true motives.
It was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love.
There are so many unanswered questions, with many more waiting in the bullpen. Has anyone questioned the NSA sex cult members fired by Tulsi Gabbard? Is it possible they are going rogue, stirring up sexual deviance like the armed queers of Salt Lake City, Utah?
Shay had once said, "You North Americans, I'm very jealous of you because you guys have the most important struggle of all. You're in the belly of the beast."
A feeling that we have a world to win, and a feeling that victory is ours and that revolution will come.
Just how deep does this thing go? It appears that we are merely scratching the surface.
If the purpose is to, undermine, say the ideology of Donald Trump, you got a governor here who hates MAGA and has said that from the beginning. And whenever he talks about disagreeing better, it's always like, even if a person is MAGA, even if it's your uncle who believes in MAGA, we can still be understanding. We can still get along with each other. And it goes back to this dignity index. It goes back to the University of Utah. It goes back to the think tanks here in Utah that are driving this ideology to basically gut the Republican Party. And if we want to take it a step further, then we get into the elections themselves, which are a sham. You've got a red state, Utah, the only red state that has universal mail-in ballots. The governor and the lieutenant governor control every aspect of the election. You can't look at anything. Now you got the DOJ out here suing to say, we want to look at your voter rolls, and the lieutenant governor is saying, we'll give you some of them. Yeah, it's infiltration. It's not beating the Republicans. It's infiltrating the Republicans in a red state like Utah.
John Bound reporting for Infowars.com.
All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. 10:08 p.m., September 21, 2025. How was your week? Well, it's been another crazy, super fast week around here, it seems like. I just blink and the week is over, and here we are again. So I'm sure many of you guys experienced the same thing. So yes, it has been an interesting week, and I thought that video was pretty good. It details a lot of the things that we mentioned last week, including we've never seen the so-called engraved markings on the bullets and all this stuff that they keep talking about. And I always come back to, we can't believe a thing that they say. As far as whatever the official narrative is, you can just throw it out because ain't none of it true. So I think that video helped to prove that the whole leaked, quote-unquote, leaked interaction, that came out this week between the supposed shooter and the other guy, where the person on the mainstream media said it was so touching and so loving. That whole thing just seemed like a ChatGPT conversation, and again, it was not the way those types of kids even talk to each other, let alone the way they type to each other. So the whole thing's just completely unbelievable, and I think we should all just throw it out completely. And anyway, let's start with this first article that I pulled up tonight, which is really just in the last few hours has transpired, and that was the memorial for Charlie that happened. And yes, it was filled to capacity. It says 63,000 here. I don't know. I guess that's the football stadium, but there were way more people than that there. You could tell the place was completely packed. An enormous number of people have already gathered in Arizona. This was earlier this morning, obviously. People were standing in line for a long time to attend the Charlie Kirk Memorial today at 11 Mountain Time. Yeah, it was 1 o'clock here when it all kicked off. I did watch it. I watched the whole thing, and estimated crowd to be 300,000. Among the speakers at the event will be Trump, Vance, Secretary of State Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, of course, and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and others, including Miss Erica, the wife. And yes, all of those people did speak, and then some. And then he's got a couple of embedded tweets here with video. The event has been declared a national security special event almost 7,000 security personnel are on site or nearby, according to what Hal's saying here. So yes, security is equivalent to what is found around the Super Bowl. Probably even more so, I would say. Not too many bulletproof plexiglass windows that they set up on the stage there. You don't really see that at the Super Bowl much. So yeah, it was pretty wild, and you could tell it was very well attended, and seemed to be, from what you could tell, at least on camera anyway, it seemed to be pretty smoothly run. So that's good. So anyway, we'll look at that a little bit closer as we move on tonight, as far as a few of the details. And overall, I thought it was really good. They did a good job of honoring Mr. Kirk, and yeah, there's something to be said for what many people are calling a revival that could be happening in this country. Let's hope that that's true. And you could see where an event like this could definitely rally the troops in a way. And I think it is doing that. It is catalyzing some of the people on the right who are really, up to this point, have been either too afraid to say anything, or maybe it's not that so much as to put it out there, to talk about things that like Charlie talked about, his love for Jesus, and to not be shy about that. I think it is definitely helping some people to sort of step forward and say some things maybe to other people that they weren't really ready to do before. So let's keep moving. We've got quite a few articles to look at that are not necessarily related to the story of the week, which of course is still the assassination. So we'll look at a few of those, and then we have other things to talk about as well tonight. The official story on Charlie Kirk's killing is crumbling, and everyone is lying about the shooter. Official story is that Tyler Robinson was the lone shooter in the assassination of Charlie. Many people on social media have suggested that Robinson was not working alone, or that the shot originated from a position other than the rooftop. That's been a big story this week, actually. Others have suggested that Robinson is a patsy. So part of that notice he is wearing a bulletproof vest. You guys may have seen this footage. That's not embedded here, I don't guess. But he is wearing a bulletproof vest, but he's in a jail. So I don't know how much good that's going to do. But, patsies often end up dead. Just ask Crooks and so many others. So let's hope he doesn't. If he confesses for real, if he really has confessed, then I guess it's possible that he could end up disappeared as well. But who knows? Who knows where this is going? But the official story is just completely unbelievable at this point. So this person in this video here, James Lee, is outlining the missing evidence in the assassination of Charlie that includes a missing bullet, which that's never been really mentioned, although we do have a little bit of information on that tonight. A camera that was removed from the scene minutes after the shooting. We have some information on that as well. Robinson's confession under the keyboard that disappeared, and the crime scene that was cleaned and is being covered over with pavers and more. Yes, the area where the tent was has already been demoed. It's already being demolished and covered over with new concrete. Isn't that nice? Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Max Blumenthal, and Matt Gaetz have alleged that the foreign government of Israel may be linked to the shooting. The men using hand signals behind Kirk just before he was shot has yet to be explained. I heard that it was routine for the security personnel to use hand signals like that, but of course we have no way to know actually what's going on with that. So anyway, in a sense, Tyler has been accused of being a left-wing radical with ties to the trans community and a right-wing groyper because his parents are reported to be Republicans. A groyper would be a follower of Nick Fuentes in particular, I suppose. A far-right extremist, as they might say. The playbook is designed to get us to fight, and the goal is civil war. An exclusive Washington Post article claimed that Robinson wrote a single message on Discord, quote, "It was me at UVA yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this," end quote. However, a New York Times article claimed that Robinson joked that the suspected shooter was a doppelganger and that he wanted a cut of the FBI reward money. Then there were these multiple patsies in the crowd, including George Zinn, who, sidebar, and it was mentioned in the video that we started out the show with tonight. He was also one of the eyewitnesses supposedly at 9/11. So obviously he is a CIA plant, and he is he's being used in these major types of events as either a distraction or someone to provide plenty of misinformation. So it seems to me like you can pretty easily explain George Zinn. I think he's working for the people who are planning these types of things. George Zinn, an older man who was charged with child porn on his phone. That was very recently, just this last week. There were two men behind Kirk on stage who seemed to be making hand signals behind him before he was shot. A young man was physically silenced as he was giving his first-hand account. Kash Patel fired the legendary FBI special agent in charge in Salt Lake just a month before she would have led the ongoing manhunt for Charlie Kirk's assassin. So isn't that nice? So there's all these different things that people are, some of these things people are talking about. Other things are maybe new to you. So anyway, that is a needtoknow.news article. And then the next one here is Genius Act. The Genius Act will soon bring radical change to the U.S. economy using digital currency. Isn't that lovely? And we do have a video tonight on the Genius Act, so stay tuned for that. We'll play that in a little bit. U.S. government is facing a debt crisis. In short-term investing, the volatility of Bitcoin can allow a person to profit immensely, but only if Bitcoin holders have a stable coin to convert to when the market corrects itself. This is the foundational purpose of a stable coin, to maintain a stable value so that one's investment can be temporarily secured. The planned outline in the Genius Act is to create an increased demand for U.S. debt by requiring stablecoin companies to be backed by U.S. debt, thereby using stablecoins as a way to funnel global money into U.S. government debt. An advisor to Russian President Putin said that the U.S. is planning a worldwide crypto rug pull. A worldwide crypto rug pull to erase its massive debt by creating a U.S. debt-based stablecoin system and then devalue it, robbing the people of their money to pay off its debt. He said that the world will be split up into zones in a multipolar war. Sounds like something that might transpire in the end times, doesn't it? Anyway, there are a couple of videos embedded here, and further information, should you want to look into that, needtoknow.news. And then one more from the same site. Trump to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. George Soros funneled $80 million to pro-terror groups. Mentioned this last week. Not sure, other than the EO, the executive order, I'm not really sure what else is going on with this, but I don't know, remains to be seen. President Trump announced that Antifa will be, or you could call them Trantifa, will be designated by the United States as a terrorist organization. Antifa, or anti-fascist, is the abbreviated name for it. Journalist Andy Ngo, N-G-O is his last name, Andy Ngo said that it would be difficult for Trump to assemble a legally binding designation against the reality of constitutionally protected protections surrounding the First Amendment. However, laws against organized crime already exist, and prosecution under federal conspiracy and RICO statutes is entirely possible. Andy Ngo recommended avoiding the labels and designation and simply arrest the criminals for their direct behavior in the moment that the behavior takes place. Boy, that's a brilliant thought, isn't it? Arrest them when they break the law. A report from Capital Research Center, a think tank tracking foundations, charities, and other nonprofits, has revealed the Open Society Foundation, run by George Soros and his ultra-leftist radical son Alex, has funneled over $80 million into groups linked to terrorism or extreme violence. Yeah, but one of the things that they claim is that they're not centralized and they don't have a central organization, but clearly someone is receiving these funds. So it seems to me like if they really wanted to do something about it, they could. But anyway, Trantifa. So we'll see what happens with all of that. Not holding my breath, but Trump has he's claiming that they're going to do something about it, but I think he did that back in the first term as well. All right, technocracy.news. 3 articles here that we have that are front and center. First one is, and suddenly the robots appeared. Technocracy.news, and suddenly the robots appeared. Jensen Huang, ChatGPT moment for general robotics is just around the corner. Tesla's Optimus robot is predicted to be the biggest product in history, topping over $1 trillion in the first few years. Venture capital is flowing into the robot space with over $5 billion invested in new startups since 2024. China has beat Tesla to the market with a 4'3", 77-pound humanoid that sells for $16,000. So China is first to the market, I guess. So yeah, Jensen Huang, he is an interesting guy to hear talk. He is the CEO, I believe, of NVIDIA. That's the name of the company. And they are front and center in the whole chip-making market. But pretty interesting here that China has already beat Tesla's Optimus to market. So not saying that that'll actually matter, but it's pretty amazing. They're topping over $1 trillion in the first few years. I can't imagine wanting a robot for any reason, but I guess people will. I don't think it would be necessarily for your average family. I think it would probably be more for manufacturing, perhaps. I don't know. The next Technocracy article we have here is CBDCs. Welcome to Technocracy's digital prison. The requirements for ubiquitous programmable currency include AI, massive data centers, which we've been talking about a lot on the show, global digital ID, continuous surveillance to monitor individual behavior, and geospatial surveillance to monitor group behavior. This infrastructure is being constructed at blinding speed all around the world, especially driven by the arch technocrats from Silicon Valley that have taken over the Trump administration, and that they have. He's handed them the reins, effectively. All right, and then the third article on this site, Business Insider, fact check your AI stories or else. Journalists at Business Insider are officially green-lighted to use AI to write stories, but they will own whatever they publish under their own name, and that includes hallucinations and wrong information. Business Insider is the first major publication to spell out stringent rules and regulations regarding the use of AI. Obviously, Business Insider journalists are buzzing. So, wow. It's the first time I've ever heard of a company that publishes original content like this, telling the writers, yes, you can use AI, and yes, you will own what AI generates, and good or bad, whether or not it's wrong information and hallucinates, or whether it's correct information. It's all up to you. So that is pretty wild. That's on technocracy.news. Now, the Liberty Beacon, I've got a few articles from this site as well. First one, Watch Live, which that was earlier today, so it's kind of hard to do now. Charlie's memorial service, over 100,000 expected to attend. I think it was far more than that. And you can see here just from this screenshot how packed it was. Every seat in this giant arena that isn't roped off for security is packed to the ceiling. And this is a post from Musk. Elon Musk was there. He did not speak, but he was there. Join us in celebrating the remarkable life and enduring legacy of Charlie Kirk, American legend. Turning Point USA said in a post on X. So anyway, this is a little bit more information and a link to at least a version of the full YouTube broadcast here. I watched it on Charlie's channel and was impressed to see the subscriber numbers go from 5.28 million subscribers when I started watching it. By the time it was over, it was at 5.32 million. So it had grown that much just in like 3 hours or whatever it was. Pretty wild. Anyway, Liberty Beacon, that was the first article on there. This one as well, Big Food embracing Maha. So they say here, removing obesity-causing additives. They're embracing Maha. I don't think I buy that one. Tyson Foods announcement this week that it is removing high fructose corn syrup and 3 other additives from its products has firmly established a new commitment to better health by big food producers. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. said on Friday about 40% of the food industry is now on board, including Smucker's, General Foods, and many others. Kennedy exclusively told Breitbart News, "It's all the big producers, and Tyson has been a leader from the beginning. I'm very grateful for their vision and commitment to their customers' health." Yes, but they also want to put bug protein in all kinds of food. So I wouldn't get too excited here about Tyson Foods if you ask me. Tyson is the second largest food and beverage company in the U.S. Its products include such popular brands as Tyson, Jimmy Dean, and Hillshire Farm. So yes, high fructose corn syrup, bad news. There were a lot of companies that were already aware of the backlash of having that in their foods and were already removing that, so I don't really know why they're so excited about this. One of the other ingredients that they have on the list here that Tyson in particular is going to work on removing is titanium dioxide. Doesn't that sound yummy? A synthetic produced white pigment which research shows can disrupt hormone responses and blood sugar levels and can contribute to diabetes, obesity, and other health problems. So yes, they only care about us. Don't worry, they're going to remove all the bad stuff and do as they're told. It doesn't say a year here. That was kind of the thing I was looking for, because oftentimes they'll say, "Oh, yeah, you can agree to do it, and we won't really hold you accountable until 2030, or years and years from now." So I don't know if that is the case, but I do know some of those things were at least end of 2026 and going into 2027 when certain things that RFK Jr. had been working on before this Tyson story came up. So I don't know. We'll see on that one. Another leftist shooter attacks country club wedding in New Hampshire. So this was a few days ago. America is suffering from leftist fatigue. 3 left-wing shooters in the span of a week, from the murder of Charlie to an attack on an ABC affiliate station in Sacramento. In the most recent event, a shooting at a country club wedding in Nashua, New Hampshire. This, of course, not counting the transgender killer who murdered 2 children and wounded 18 at the Catholic school in Minneapolis a week before Charlie's assassination. In every case, there have been clear intent of politically motivated violence. Democrats and woke activists continue to deny that they have any culpability, but after a decade of demonizing everyone who disagrees with them and calling them fascists and Nazis, isn't this the end result they always wanted? Of course it is. They are getting exactly what they have asked for. Crazies with guns killing people that they disagree with. So that is more of what's going on here as far as another shooter. This one was in New Hampshire. And then I thought this one was odd just because not something you generally see on the Liberty Beacon. Quote, "We found massive underwater UFO bases and I want answers," from Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. And I do like Tim Burchett. I think he has a lot of interesting things to say. He seems to be a pretty no-nonsense kind of guy. And then here is a clip embedded here in the page from Redacted. And then Rep. Luna, also clip here from her with her hearings on UAPs. So there's several video clips here. Now we have Rep. Tim Burchett, Republican from Tennessee, doing an amazing walk and talk where he lets out an important line of questioning. It is referred to in the video interview between Dr. Michael Salla and Clayton Morris below, a worthwhile 1 minute. Tim Burchett says entities, quote unquote, may be coming from 5 to 6 deep water sites on Earth. What is really going on down there? That's a good question. Anyway, thought that would be something you guys might be interested in. That is on the Liberty Beacon, and we will link to all these in the Substack post that I send out in a day or so. So make sure you're on the Substack list. Speaking of which, let's turn our crawler back on here so you can see where that is. It's diamonddisc.substack.com. So make sure you're on that list, and you'll get all of the links on all of the various articles and some of the videos and things that I talk about tonight and things that I show. So make sure you're on that list. Totally free. Now here's one of the stories that last one, or a couple back, was alluding to. Anti-Trump shooter fired 3 shots into ABC building after the Kimmel suspension. So yes, Jimmy Kimmel was suspended or put on hiatus or fired, or I don't know what, a few days ago. So this is a story that's connected to that. A 64-year-old man who police said fired 3 shots into a local ABC studio after late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel was suspended this week, reportedly had a social media account that showed a clear hatred for Trump. Imagine that. There are a lot of people with Trump derangement syndrome, and unfortunately, some of them are armed. Variety reported an X account for Anibal Santana, the suspected gunman, contained a steady stream of anti-Trump commentary. Mentioned some of those here in this article. But it says he was arrested early Saturday morning after ABC 10 in Sacramento was hit 3 times during a drive-by shooting on Friday. He was booked and charged with assault with a deadly weapon, negligent discharge of a firearm, and shooting into an occupied building. Bail was set at $200,000. So, yes, he decided to go randomly shoot up an ABC affiliate that has absolutely nothing to do with Jimmy Kimmel, other than the ABC part of their name. So that's how intelligent these people are out there. Yes. So anyway, that one is a Yahoo News story. And this one I wanted to mention just because we've talked about some of the ongoing tyranny in the UK, things that are happening over there that's just really unbelievable. Well, this is another one of those stories. A British man was arrested at 4 a.m. in front of his cancer-stricken wife for simply saying that he dislikes seeing Palestinian flags everywhere. It's not a crime, it's just an opinion. This isn't democracy, this is totalitarianism. So they came and arrested him at 4 a.m. because he posted on Facebook he doesn't like seeing Palestinian flags everywhere. That's it. That's all he said. So that's all. Doesn't take much over in the UK, does it? So this is a video clip here of some of that story. So pretty strange. I wanted to mention it just because we've talked about the ongoing and getting worse tyranny over there in the UK as far as freedom of speech goes. So as far as the memorial today, Forgiveness and Revival, Kirk celebrated at memorial service. His wife, Erica, said people have responded to his death the way that her late husband would have wanted. There's Trump. He did speak toward the end of the service. Thousands showed up in person and millions tuned in on Sunday for the memorial of Charlie. The Christian conservative activist was shot and killed September 10th during an event in Utah at Utah Valley University. Sunday's memorial was held at State Farm Stadium in Phoenix, the same state where Kirk's Turning Point USA organization is headquartered. Live performances of Christian music occurred between speeches. Videos of Kirk speaking to people at TPUSA events also appeared on monitors. His wife, Erica, said people have responded to his death the way that her late husband would have wanted. She says, after Charlie's assassination, we did not see violence and we didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw revival, with some people opening a Bible for the first time in a decade. And that's true. I've heard people talking about that. Certainly on social media and then in real life as well. We saw people pray for the first time since they were children. We saw people go to a church service for the first time in their entire lives. So yes, while there are so many questions as far as what actually happened and the ridiculousness that is the FBI and the official story, while that part of it is almost like throw it away, it means nothing, the good part of the story here is that people are open hearing the gospel now, where perhaps they weren't before. And unfortunately, Charlie had to lose his life for people to really wake up. But I think people are. At least, if you're either a believer who's just kind of gone cold in the faith, perhaps, or maybe only hearing it for the first time, I think it's pretty remarkable, actually, the outpouring of love that they're getting, and where it seems to be headed as far as, you could call it revival, I don't know. Perhaps it's a version of end times revival. I don't know, but I do think it's pretty amazing. Bullet that hit Charlie purportedly made no exit wound. So this was another one of those crazy stories from a almost unbelievable source, which was one of the doctors. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive, so impressive, that he's like the man of steel. They were actually saying this. There was a doctor that said this, comparing him to Superman now. Yeah, that's where we're going. Call it a miracle, though many are calling it BS. And I don't mean Barbra Streisand or Bruce Springsteen. Andrew Colvette, executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, said Saturday that he spoke with the surgeon who worked on Kirk at the hospital. According to Colvette, the surgeon said the .30 caliber bullet that hit Charlie made no exit wound because Kirk is like the man of steel. To me, all of this smells like a total lie. Pretty much everybody is saying that the reason that the wound was so bad was because it was an exit wound. And if it made no exit wound, what would cause? I mean, they are then saying that the massive wound that we all saw was the entrance wound, and then therefore, because of all of that, the bullet should have been lodged inside of him somewhere, and they should have that, right? He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very, very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc., but it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it, Colvette said on Twitter. So if that's the case, then the bullet was still inside him, and yet we've never heard, if that is truly the case, which I don't believe that it is, that it matches the round of the gun that was supposedly found. Right? Just basic deduction here would say that. The surgeon supposedly explained that his bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. The coroner found the round just beneath Kirk's skin. By comparison, the .30 caliber round that Secret Service counter sniper David King fired at an alleged would-be Trump assassin Thomas Crooks made 5 wounds. According to the medical examiner who autopsied Crooks, he'd suffered 5 gunshot wounds, an entry wound, an exit wound, a re-entry wound, and 2 corresponding partial re-exit wounds. So that's nice and clear, isn't it? There's corresponding partial gunshot re-exit wound where the lateral right upper back is, and there is an additional corresponding partial gunshot re-exit wound on the lateral right upper back, said Crooks's autopsy report. I don't think we've ever really heard that before. At least I hadn't. Anyway, so it is talking about the shooting of Crooks here. So I don't know. The whole thing sounds really fishy to me, and they're still not really saying definitively, yes, we have the bullet. Here is the caliber that it is. And in fact, in just a little bit here, I'll show you a video. I probably won't play the video, but we'll get to it, and I'll show a kind of a still shot where the guy's talking about it from a ballistics standpoint, and he says because you see blood on Charlie's shirt first, it can't possibly be an entrance wound. In other words, you would see the blood on the shirt before the hole opens up only in an exit wound situation. So it about has to be that, according to this ballistics expert person. on a video that we will show here in just a minute. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. Report: investigators have found no evidence that the Kirk assassin was part of a left-wing network. Every indication so far is that this was one guy who did one really bad thing because he found Kirk's ideology personally offensive. And then there are the AI-enhanced still shots that we've all seen, which I personally don't buy. NBC News reported Saturday, NBC News said that investigators have yet to find evidence that alleged Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson was part of a wider left-wing network. Thus far, there's no evidence connecting the suspect with any left-wing groups. So they say here. So, I don't know. I don't tend to believe that one. That was actually an article dated today. So, anyway, yeah, they're saying that, there's no evidence. So just totally ignore everything you heard. That's a Headline USA article. A couple more from this site. Thought this one was kind of weird. Jazzy Crockett, meaning Jasmine Crockett, claims committing crimes doesn't make you a criminal. Committing a crime can come from a lot of different reasons, she says. On a podcast, I guess. New Jasmine Crockett claims committing crimes doesn't make a person a criminal, says it depends on their mindset. So figure that one out. Just because someone has committed a crime, it doesn't make them a criminal. So says her illogic. That is completely different. Being a criminal is more so about your mindset, she says. Yeah, well, she should know, right? Anyways, I thought that was a pretty good example of how left-wingers and crazy libs tend to think, but there's no thinking involved. It's 100% emotions and whatever happens to flow out at the moment, whatever they're spewing, and that makes absolutely no sense. Headline USA article, I thought this one was funny as well. Obese Democrat influencer, quote-unquote, calls for hunger strike to protest the Jimmy Kimmel cancellation. So this nearly 400-pound girl is going to go on a hunger strike based on Kimmel being fired. 22-year-old activist who gained fame in 2022 after being body shamed has been open about her lifelong struggle with obesity, saying in July that she was down 60 pounds since 2021 after having topped the scales at 370. But she's going to go on a hunger strike to protest what happened to Jimmy Kimmel and his firing. They pulled the show indefinitely, at least. Seems to me like she has a definite advantage on being able to stretch out a hunger strike. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. That one is a Headline USA article. And then Information Liberation. Mike Johnson holds private meeting, quote unquote, with Jewish leaders, pledges to screen out anti-Israel GOP candidates. So Bob's big boy is at it again. We've mentioned before how old Mike Johnson looks like the Bob's big boy guy. So yes, they are going to make sure they weed out anybody who is anti-Israel. House Speaker Johnson held a private meeting with AIPAC and Jewish leaders on Wednesday on Capitol Hill, wherein he reportedly pledged to screen out isolationist GOP candidates to prevent that wing of the party from growing larger in the House. So there you go. You cannot have any dissenting opinion about Israel and remain in power, at least in the House. We kind of already knew that, but he's actually out there saying it. So there's quite a bit here on this article. This is a Information Liberation article. Oh, this picture here reminds me the menorah. We're going to look at that here in just a minute as well. I've got it pulled up separately. You'll find it very interesting here in just a few minutes. And then other articles on Information Liberation. Largest NEH grant in history awarded to Jewish organization to counter pathology of anti-Semitism and teach the Talmud. The Trump administration, through the National Endowment for Humanities, that's NEH, is giving the largest grant in the agency's history, over $10 million, to the Jewish American neoconservative Tikva Fund to counter, quote, the pathology of anti-Semitism and to teach the Talmud. Isn't that lovely? That is two really bad things. And then here's the article that we were just reading about with the private meeting with Jewish leaders. And then this one, I think, is kind of interesting. Quote, he's effing me. Trump fumes about Netanyahu in private, yet still gives him free rein. Yeah, I keep saying, and I still believe it, at least to some degree, that Netanyahu is the current president of the United States. Perhaps you agree. President Trump fumed in private after Israel struck Qatar that Prime Minister Netanyahu is, quote, effing him, yet he has continued to give the Jewish leader free rein to call the shots in the Middle East. Yes, that would be because Trump supposedly is afraid of Netanyahu, and he probably actually is. He is a thug after all, right? Wall Street Journal, TikTok in final talks to be bought by Oracle. Isn't that lovely? Silver Lake also, and Andreessen Horowitz. TikTok, which the U.S. government moved to ban last year for allowing criticism of Israel to go viral, is reportedly now in final talks to be bought by a small group of Zionist billionaires. Yeah, and then Oracle, of course, would be Larry Ellison. So there you go. It looks like that's where that's headed. Bill Ackman hammered Charlie Kirk in August in an intervention for platforming Israel critics. Yeah, this has been a pretty big story this week as well. Zionist billionaire Bill Ackman hammered Charlie Kirk during an August intervention in the Hamptons for platforming critics of Israel at TPUSA events, journalist Max Blumenthal reports. So that's not only Candace Owens, but others, I guess. Yes, so Charlie was definitely starting to wake up, from what I can tell, which, you know, could lead one to believe that that gives motive to someone else, perhaps other people, to get rid of him. Anyway, those are the information liberation stories, top headlines. Netanyahu warns that a Palestinian state, quote, will not happen. Israeli Prime Minister has said that he has fought against a two-state solution despite facing tremendous pressure. Yes. We know. Bibi's got it so tough. Anyway, not real surprising. Palestinian state will never be established west of the River Jordan, Bibi said in a reply to nations that have recently recognized Palestine. Yeah, that did actually happen recently. Portugal followed the UK, Canada, and Australia and formally recognized a Palestinian statehood on Sunday, joining the growing list of countries to take the step since the start of Israel's military campaign against Hamas in Gaza. So Bibi's not liking that too much. So who did that? UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal have formally recognized a Palestinian state. So, wow. And that article is actually a separate one right here. Portugal joins UK, Canada, and Australia in recognizing Palestinian state. Move comes on the eve of a UNGA summit next week that is expected to be dominated by Middle East issues. Yeah, they're having a UN confab coming up this week. Pretty interesting. Gaza does not qualify as genocide, according to Macron. The French president disagrees with a recent UN report on Israel's war in the Palestinian enclave. France does not believe that Israel's actions in Gaza constitute genocide. That's what he says. A UN Commission of Inquiry published a report on Tuesday concluding that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in the enclave. We don't qualify as a genocide what's happening because it's not a political statement, Macron said in an interview with CBS. He explained that the verdict will be for the judges or the historians to pass after considering the evidence and clear jurisprudence. So the UN Commission inquiry, all those people were wrong, and only France and Israel are correct, I guess. We're supposed to believe that. Anyway, that's an RT article. And then I just wanted to show you guys a couple of these Daily Crow top headlines here. And I saw her do this, and I'm like, oh no, here we go again. This was at the memorial today. She just had to do that, didn't she? That's Erica with Trump. And then he brings her out at the end after he's done speaking, and they hug and kind of walk off stage and stop, and they're hearing all this applause, and she does this move, which I knew when she did it, people would say, well, obviously it's a sign of loving Satan. Clearly she's giving her allegiance, when I thought, man, that I wish she wouldn't have done that, because I personally don't think that's what she meant. It is also sign language for I love you, right? And it explains it here. But of course, that is where the internet's going to go. It's just bound to happen that way. Erica Kirk forgives Charlie's assassin, Tyler Robinson, in a powerful, tearful tribute to her late husband, and says, this is very touching, but does she know that he isn't the assassin? Surely she does. This is all very bizarre. Everything she said was perfect, too perfect. I don't want to be cynical, but I also don't want to be without discernment in this age of deceit. And then he says, excuse me? That is from the publisher here on Daily Crow. So yes, and then this happens. Every person with millions of eyes on them makes hand signs that show allegiance to Satan. I understand this also means I love you in sign language. However, she's not ignorant to how this will be interpreted. No appearance of evil, quote unquote. Why? The fact no ordinary people do this, yet every famous person does, means either coincidence times a million, or they're signaling their allegiance. I personally don't think that it is signaling her allegiance at all. And I have seen regular people do this. For sure. Again, especially when it's considered sign language. And here's how it works. This is the I, this is the L, this is the Y. It's the ILY sign. It just happens to be also the same, almost the same as 3 versions of the El Diablo. So anyway, that happened earlier today, and of course, everybody's going crazy about that, but it's to be expected. So, and then we talked about the neck thing as far as the bullet goes. Edward Dowd tweeted this out. What manner of tomfoolery are we witnessing? Allegedly, a statement from the ER doctor who worked on Charlie. Quote, his bone was so healthy that the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. So this is Ed Dowd questioning that. And then, on top of that, Fox News is running with the Superman angle. Charlie Kirk's neck is so powerful it saved the lives of others. At this point, based on what we know so far, any competent defense attorney would have his client plead not guilty, since there's apparently no hard evidence linking the guy to any shooting at all. The story is changing to the angle caused the bullet to hit the spine and fragment, none of which is consistent with an entry or exit wound. The wound we all saw was an exit wound. To say otherwise is beyond absurd. So yes, and then this picture came out. Candace Owens put this out a few days ago, where just a matter of a few hours after the shooting of Charlie, the supposed shooter shows up in a local Dairy Queen, just a little ways away from the campus, and ordering, I don't know, his chicken nuggets and fries and some ice cream or something. And right behind him, of course, is a picture of Superman from the movie. And then they're talking here more about the whole Superman angle. So obviously this is a little bit of a stretch, if you ask me. But yes. And then Mike Adams, Health Ranger, kind of chiming in here. Fox News is running with the Man of Steel headline, which is obviously stupid beyond belief. I forgot to mention that if this trajectory continues, soon the Christian-leaning press, which I don't know who that would be, but will ridiculously declare that Charlie Kirk actually was Jesus and he died for our sins. Well, I don't think they'll go quite that far, but I get it. I understand what he's saying. Magical bullets, bulletproof skin, rapid clothing changes by the shooter while he was on the roof, which we've never seen that footage, by the way. Just of him supposedly jumping off the roof. magical rifle assembly skills, magical self-writing notes that don't sound anything like the way young people communicate. This is really getting insane, which is what I said at the beginning of the show tonight. We can't believe a word from anybody. Not the official story. I would definitely tend to believe what some of the internet sleuths are finding out there. I think it's far more believable. Yeah, so this is more about the crazy ER doctor. So anyway, that was pretty strange, I thought. And yes, one more here. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sends Rosh Hashanah greetings and learns to blow the shofar. Isn't that lovely? Of course he would. So this is something I mentioned last week, not him, but the shofar blowing coming up on Wednesday, the 24th. This is something that we'll need to keep an eye on this week, and we'll talk about it next show, because I personally think Israel is planning something. I don't know what, but Israel is planning something on the 24th. And the reason I say that is, I mentioned it last week, they're going to be live streaming 100 different shofars blowing, because it is the Feast of Trumpets, the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, and they have something planned. Why would they bother live streaming all these different shofars around Jerusalem being blown? And this picture here, an article, is linking over to Ambassador Mike Huckabee getting involved in the fun. So isn't that nice? So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on what's going to happen this week. I tend to think that something is up. And this guy I'd heard of before. I'd never really watched any of his videos, but he makes some good points in this video, and we'll link to this in the Substack post. Daniel 9:27, alert Trump to talk peace and safety at the UN on September 23rd, which is right during the Feast of Trumpets and Rosh Hashanah and all this stuff. And he's saying Israel's final 7 years, ? So he makes some good points in this video. I don't agree with all of it, and I would leave it up to you guys to watch it. It's a pretty short video, 13 minutes. So, he does talk about the whole peace and safety thing, and how that is something that Trump is purposely out there stating that he's going for. Talking to many nations, he says, and talking about world peace. So, I don't know. I'm not sure that this is what this guy, Scott Clark, is saying it is, but you guys can certainly be the judge of that as well. It is interesting, that's for sure. And I don't think, though, that it is, and I don't think it's necessarily Daniel 9:27. And he made a point here of saying that just because Trump is talking about world peace and will be involved in talking to many nations about it, that doesn't make him the Antichrist. He's saying that the Antichrist will be someone else, and that this is separate from that, which I think that that's probably true. However, he does make some interesting points here. Let's see if it says, peace and safety will be the subject of Trump's United Nations speech in September, which is coming up in a couple of days. Will he convince many heads of nations to agree to a peace covenant of 7 years, which will begin Israel's final prophetic timeline? If so, the next 7 years could be the most interesting of our lives, as they will bring angelic activity, the new temple in Jerusalem, which he does talk about in this video, and finally a resurrection of the dead and the reign of Jesus Christ on earth for 1,000 years. So I'm with him on some of that, other than I think that that's already all started. And it doesn't happen the way we think it's going to happen, and it doesn't start with the peace treaty. And that's something that we have talked about at length on End Times Dates, and here it is right here, no peace treaty. 7-year tribulation begins September 2021. So we won't get into that tonight. However, I do think it's pretty interesting that he is putting forth the whole timeline thing, and he makes some good points here. I just don't agree with it personally, but he does make some good points, like I said. So anyway, there's that, if you guys want to take a look at that. And then I mentioned this guy last week as well, Stephen Burns, scientist, talking about 3-Eye Atlas. Now, this is a new video from, I guess, yesterday. 3-Eye Atlas is beginning to reveal what it truly is. The countdown begins. So if you're really into the whole science part of this whole thing, with the comet that's not a comet headed our way, he makes some really, really good points here in this video. And based on that, I wanted to see if there was any news about the whole 3i Atlas thing over on Yowza.com, which is a site that I've mentioned on this broadcast many times, and whether or not it could somehow be connected to Nemesis and Planet X and all of that stuff. Well, Marshall Masters does address it in one of the interviews on this site. I have not heard it. However, he does talk about it briefly. And from what I can tell, it is separate, not necessarily connected to the whole Planet X thing. And he does have, well, let me read this top part of this article here. 2025 Nemesis Awareness Collection. And that's this sheet of pictures here. And I'll show a close-up of that here in just a sec. By 2026, Nemesis, a brown dwarf, and our sun's smaller binary companion, will become the largest object in our sky as it passes way above Earth's orbit on its downward plunge towards the ecliptic, a plane of our system. It will become omnipresent, but for now, Nemesis remains close to our sun, which means it can only be viewed just after sunrise or just before sunset in most cases. Herein is the crux of the problem for those in awareness: how to awaken the sleepers without the usual disquieting blowback of emotional denial and mockery. The purpose of this collection right here is to help those in awareness to plant small seeds of wakefulness without risking the unpleasantness of rejection and the doing of it's intentionally simple and is based on the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So anyway, all that to say, here is a semi-close-up here of some of the visuals that are on that sheet, and it's for, I guess it's available for purchase maybe from his site. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm just saying they do have it. But you can see here, all of these photos are ones that were taken and submitted to Marshall and Yowza, the website, through the Telegram channel, I think mostly. I'm a member of the Telegram channel, and they do have some really interesting pictures on there. And you can see most of these pictures are from all over the world, and you'll see two suns, what appears to be two suns. So it is not people's imagination. It is happening. However, the reason you don't see the Planet X system approaching is because it's literally right by the sun. And you can only see it at sunrise or sunset and at certain latitudes on the Earth. So it depends on where you are, and you can't see it. So this specific picture here that we have pulled up has, I don't know how many pictures on it, but there's a lot. Well, there's 12 in a row here. I don't know how many rows there are, but there's probably at least 100 pictures here. And they're from all over. So you can kind of get an idea that, people are witnessing this happening. And my question was, is Planet X and the whole Nemesis thing, is that connected somehow to 3i Atlas? And from what I can tell, it's not. This appears to be a separate event. So that was my question. Maybe you guys have researched this and know more than I do about it, but from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to be connected. And this will be mostly transpiring near the end of this year, I guess, as far as 3i Atlas and as it heads into our system. So I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. And this guy here does a really good breakdown on it from a scientific perspective. Everything you ever wanted to know about 3i Atlas, I feel like this guy has really done a good job of explaining it. He's even got the t-shirt. So, if he has a t-shirt, he's really serious about it. Anyway. All right. And then Candace has just been cutting right through all of the noise and going right for telling the truth about pretty much everything that's happening here as much as she can about Charlie and, well, really everything. But this video I thought was really good. This came out a day or two ago now, but people have probably seen the camera right behind Charlie being taken down right away. Right after they hauled him off to the hospital, the guy that was in the tent breaking down the camera has apparently had a lot of people asking who the heck he is and what's going on, including Candace. And turns out it was someone that she already knew who was working for TPUSA. So she called him up, and she got him to show her the footage from playback. I think she said through FaceTime. So he played it for her, and she did see it. She didn't record it. Doesn't have permission to do that, but she did see it and said that the perspective that he showed her was really interesting, and it does show additional information and absolutely no more blood. So that tells you, at least tells me to some degree, that the wound that Charlie suffered had to be an exit wound because there's no blood on the backside of him. Like, she didn't see anything in that camera angle of the camera that was directly behind him. So that tells me it didn't go through him. It didn't enter in the front and come out the back, is what that tells me. So anyways, she does go into that in a lot of detail on this particular video from streamed live on the 19th. So, yeah, Friday. So certainly worth a look, and her videos are always really good, I think, anyways. So definitely check that one out, and we'll link to that in the Substack post. But you can find it. It's on her channel, one of the newest ones. If you go to her channel, make sure you click on the live tab because most of her broadcasts are live. So anyway, just further information there. All right, Western Journal. Charlie Kirk told off donors who wanted him to keep the Jesus stuff out of it. Mentor reveals. I thought this was pretty interesting. That is also for, specific donors at least. Maybe donors who don't like Jesus very much. You know who I mean. It might make them rethink about giving you money if you're going to talk about Jesus, and Charlie's basically telling them off. The late Charlie Kirk rose to prominence in conservative politics, but history should remember him first as a Christian martyr. And I would only partially agree with that. I think that's part of why he was killed, but not the full reason. Indeed, since Kirk's assassination in Utah 1 week ago, those who knew him best have described him as a man whose every word and deed flowed from his Christian faith. I get that impression as well. For instance, in a video posted to YouTube, Dr. Frank Turek, Turek, which, by the way, he has been front and center, more or less, on his own channel on YouTube, and then in other places as well. He is the guy standing there in the white shirt, back and to the right of Charlie, who has been accused of shooting him. No, the guy's name is Dr. Frank Turek, and he's not an assassin. He is a longtime friend of Charlie, and he was literally standing there videoing and shooting some video footage while the actual murder happened. So he was there just videoing, and he explains it in the video, I think, pretty well. There's some questionable things that he mentions, but he clearly did not have anything to do with the assassination. He did have a ball cap on, and he was kind of adjusting his ball cap, but he said he wasn't doing any hand signals. And I tend to believe him. But anyway, that's who Dr. Frank Turek is. A prominent Christian apologist, author, and radio host, shared Kirk's bold reply when pressed by donors to abandon his Christian message. Donors would come up to him and say, "Hey, Charlie, we love all this conservative stuff, but keep the Jesus stuff out of it," Turek recalled. You know what Charlie told them? He said, "Give your money to somebody else, because without Jesus, we're nothing. This is all about Jesus." Turek noted that Turning Point USA, the nonprofit founded by Kirk, took in more than $100 million in annual donations. In other words, Kirk would not deny Jesus to keep his mammoth organization funded. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also will acknowledge before my Father, who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven, Jesus said, according to Matthew 10:32 through 33. Moreover, Kirk considered politics merely tangential to his mission. He said recently, "Politics is peanuts compared to Jesus." Turek recalled, "It's important, but it's peanuts compared to Jesus," he said. So this is him here. And you'll see he's got the white shirt on. You've probably seen the videos of him standing behind Charlie on his right. and holding his phone up, videoing, and now people are accusing this guy of being a murderer. So you got to know what you're talking about before you start accusing people of murder. And there's a lot of really crazy things out there where people are doing that, and they think they see something that they're not actually seeing, and so forth. You guys have witnessed that too, I'm sure. Anyway, I thought that one was pretty interesting, that this article was about people telling him to keep Jesus out of it and Charlie refusing. So I think that's good news, and that tends to line up with what I have heard so far about Charlie. FBI says a lot more than 20 people may have known Charlie Kirk was going to be shot. FBI is investigating the possibility that dozens of Discord users may have knowledge about the planned murder of Charlie before it happened. Yes, I think that is pretty obvious, really. At least 6 that we have supposedly seen messages from, I suppose, on the Discord server. And now AJ on InfoWars was reporting just the other day that he, in fact, has confirmed that the FBI does have additional people that they know about, but they are not pursuing any of it. They're only pursuing the lone gunman aspect of it, which is Tyler Robinson, and that's going to be the official narrative, and that's where it's staying. According to AJ, most recently, I think it was on maybe the Friday show where he talks about that. And to me, that kind of lines up with, okay, well, if Tyler's the, quote, lone gunman and you get rid of him, then case closed. So hopefully that won't happen. I don't want to see any harm come to the young man because I personally don't think that he did it. Or if he took a shot, it wasn't the shot that took out Charlie. So I don't know how you explain that. He, especially if he confessed to it, perhaps he's involved in some sort of a CIA, mind program where he's going to admit to doing it even when he didn't do it. I mean, that's very possible. So anyway, that is a LifeSite news article. And then this is one that I showed this picture a little while ago on a different article. But I'll show you why. Palantir's Alex Karp, this guy, says Jews need to leave their comfort zone to defend community. Palantir's CEO was honored at the American Friends of Lubavitch Shabbat annual Lamplighter Awards in Washington, D.C. And look at the award. It's a giant menorah. And note the shape. I had to look it up because, not being Jewish, I didn't really know how many candlesticks there were. Turns out there's 9, interesting number. There's one taller one in the center and then 4 on each side, right? So that is your typical menorah, no matter how big or how small it might be. Here it is. You have the one up higher in the center and then 4 on each side. Menorah is a sacred candelabrum and one of Judaism's oldest and most significant symbols, representing light and the divine presence. The original 7-branched menorah described in the book of Exodus was a gold lamp used in the ancient temple to spread God's light throughout the world. During the holiday of Hanukkah, a specific 9-branched menorah called a Hanukkah, I guess, is used to commemorate the miracle of oil that burned for 8 days. It has 8 branches for the holiday's night and a 9th raised candle called the shamash to light the others. So that is the significance of the menorah with the 9 candles, right? Well, now you're ready to have your mind blown. Have a look at this. And maybe you guys have seen this. So again, here is the picture of the menorah, and, well, I'll be darned. Look at the setup in Utah. You have Charlie's tent here in the middle where the tall candle might be. They're just superimposing this picture here. And you can see all of the branches of the way the design of the area there is right where he was. Coincidence? I don't know. I sort of doubt it. But looks like maybe old Charlie might have been sacrificed to some degree. And it is interesting that Netanyahu, every chance he gets, he keeps coming out saying, no, we didn't do it. Charlie Kirk was a great man. He deserves honor, not lies. So says Benjamin Netanyahu. And it's funny, Ian Carroll's first post here on the video says, pretty awkward. And yes, it does. And then somebody else says, this makes you look guilty. Yes, Qatari money. Bingo. Of course, that's what it was. So it's always the Qataris with those guys. Those crazy Qataris. Yeah, so anyway, BB's out there saying, no, we didn't do it. Which, of course, is the Streisand effect, calling attention to something that you don't want people to pay attention to, and then, of course, you get far more people paying attention to it. That's called the Streisand effect. So anyway, that is, I think, what we're witnessing here with the whole deal with BB coming out and talking about Charlie, saying that Israel had nothing to do with the murder and so forth. And maybe they didn't. I don't know. But it looks really suspicious, and especially the more he comes out and talks about it. So, I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. Okay, here you can kind of see the menorah here upside down. But this is where Kirk was. Now, this is the 4 different cameras that there's known footage from. And this is the ballistics guy. You've probably seen him before, and even last week, I think I mentioned this guy's channel, Outside the Overton, as in the Overton window. I think he does a really good job, and he explains how the microphone, much like his, is very similar to what Charlie was wearing that day. The microphone and the cable under his shirt at the moment of impact of the bullet makes the cable inside the shirt sort of jump up, and that's why you get that weird effect on Charlie's shirt upon impact of the bullet. And he explains that, and also he mentions how that you see blood on Charlie's shirt at the time the wound happens, and you wouldn't see that with an entrance wound, only an exit wound. So he makes some really good points in this video. It's about 22 minutes long, and interesting number, I know. But it's called Ballistics Don't Lie, a video I didn't want to make. So he goes into quite a bit of detail on what Charlie was most likely wearing, and it wasn't anything that had to do with body armor and the bullet, hitting that and being deflected. In fact, it was, he had an earpiece in. You can kind of see that go flying when the moment of impact happens. Charlie had an earpiece in so he could hear. He had his microphone pinned right here and the cable under his shirt, and that's when everything sort of jumps when he gets hit. So he does a really good job of explaining, at least to my satisfaction, as far as what may have happened. So it is pretty interesting. So that's on a YouTube channel called Outside the Overton, if you guys want to check that out. But again, we'll link to this in the Substack post. Now this one is a post that I found, and I thought it was just worth mentioning. Chief Rabbi David Yosef of Israel sent a condolence letter to Charlie, to his family, praising him as a true friend of the Jewish people, quote unquote, and condemning his murder as vile and cruel. That's all well and good, right? Rabbi Yosef offered comfort in Kirk's legacy and concluded with a blessing, may God grant you and your family the strength to overcome this great tragedy and to continue his legacy for future generations. Again, that's all nice. However, if you look at the date on the letter, it says September 2nd, a full 8 days before he was actually murdered. What in the world? September 2nd. If that was a typo, why would you not correct that in the post? Because this letter has been posted by the Israel Heritage Foundation. Why would you not correct it? See? Wow. The attached letter is dated September 2nd, 8 days before Charlie was assassinated. This is definitely not a good look for you. And did you plan Charlie's death around September 2nd? This person says. Why was this dated September 2nd? So there you go. Do you mind enlightening us on how you knew to write this letter so far in advance? How could they be that far off? Did they mean September 12th and just left the one out? I don't know. I just find it really interesting, and this organization hasn't addressed the date. They just left it up and ignore everybody. So I don't know. Really weird. Here is a very interesting tweet from May 2nd, 2024. Note, it has 666,000 views. 666K views. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected with the First Amendment. Keep America free. Yeah, Bondi was out there this last week saying that, there's hate speech, and that's way worse than punishing free speech and so forth, and all this nonsense. Well, Charlie himself says there's no such thing, and I tend to agree. I don't think there is such thing. That is a construct of the left, if you ask me. Hate speech. But anyway, yes, there's gross speech, there's ugly speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. That's true. So that's why you can't really, yes, you can fault the people on the left who are coming out there saying, gloating and saying how happy they are that Charlie's gone, but that is free speech unless you go a step further and you incite people to do it again to someone else. That is where you've crossed the line. And we talked about that last week. So incitement is that's a completely different thing that you could be questioned for, that you could be in trouble for. And in fact, should be. If you're inciting people to go do harm to other people. Can't do that. Anyway, Shadow of Ezra, on their Twitter account, Ben Shapiro has stepped in as co-host of The Charlie Kirk Show, alongside Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, all of whom are supporters of Israel. His move comes just days after Charlie's assassination, with Shapiro vowing to pick up the bloodstained microphone where Charlie left it. Isn't that lovely? Way to go, Ben. Kirk's chair and microphone remain empty. So here it is here. Now, I don't know. This is dated September 16th. So I don't know that it was for more than one show. But remember last week, if you guys were listening to me, I did say, and I maintain this, we will have our answer. So that's why I'm saying it's okay to throw out the official narrative from the FBI. Who cares what they say? It doesn't mean anything, because we'll have our answer when whoever it is takes over Turning Point USA. The organization is the goal. Shutting Charlie up was an added bonus. The organization is what they were after. It's very clear. So if Israel takes over TPUSA, you have your answer. If they don't take over and the wife remains in charge, you may also have your answer. It's a little cloudier in that case, because people are finding things that she may or may not have been looking at as far as her allegiance. I can't really say one way or the other. I personally don't really have a bad feeling about the wife, about Erica, but I know some people do. I think that we will know by whoever takes over the organization long term. So we'll see. Short term, it sounds like she is going to be the CEO. And in fact, they talked about that today at the memorial service. So I guess we'll find out. All right, we mentioned the Macrons earlier. Well, the Macrons to offer, quote, scientific evidence to a U.S. court to prove that Brigitte is a woman, lawyer says. So this is where we are with this whole story. This is on BBC. Emmanuel Macron and his wife, Brigitte, wife in quotes, are planning to present photographic and scientific evidence to a U.S. court to prove Mrs. Macron is a woman. Their lawyer says the French president and Mrs. Macron will present the documentation in a defamation suit that they have taken against right-wing influencer Candace Owens after she promoted her belief and showed lots of evidence, I'm just adding that Brigitte Macron was born male. Ms. Owens' lawyers have responded with a motion to dismiss. So we'll see where it goes. What I have highlighted here, if that unpleasantness and that discomfort that she has of opening herself up in that way, meaning Brigitte, is what it takes to set the record straight and stop this, she's 100% ready to meet that burden, according to their attorney. Have you guys ever heard of AI? AI-generated videos and pictures? That's all it would have to be. It doesn't even have to be her. They could use a body double. I mean, it seems strange that they would go this route, but I guess they are. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of crazy. So yeah, this mentions Candace and the ongoing defamation lawsuit and so forth. Pretty wild. Even the BBC's talking about it. Whatever that's worth. The Sin Virus, a biblical framework for understanding artificial intelligence. Part 1, God's warning about AI that tech giants don't want you to see. Kind of a weird picture there. Bees buzzing around the brain with the honeycomb in there. In an era where tech moguls openly discuss the rise of AI and its implications for humanity's future, filmmaker Gonzo Shimura, you might have heard of him, his prophetic documentary, Age of Deceit 3, Remnants of the Cyber Hive, Earth, appears increasingly prescient. What seemed like fringe speculation just years ago manifests in Silicon Valley boardrooms where figures like Peter Thiel host seminars discussing AI's potential antichrist characteristics. Meanwhile, growing numbers question whether CERN's particle accelerator serves purpose beyond scientific research, with some suggesting connections to occult practices and dimensional manipulation. The convergence of ancient biblical prophecy with cutting-edge technology raises a disturbing question. What if the end times aren't approaching through traditional warfare, but through humanity's voluntary submission to a technological hive mind? Thus the bees. So I thought that was pretty interesting. This is the Ouroboros here. This is something that my good friend Anthony Patch mentions a lot. So this is something, and I think he even knows, or did know, Gonzo Shimura. I think that's how you say his name. And I've met him before. I met him at a Steve Quayle conference a few years ago. He was there, and I just went up and introduced myself to him and talked to him for a few minutes, and was working with Anthony even at that time. And so, yeah, we talked about that briefly because they knew each other. So anyways, apparently this was a very prescient video, although I've never heard of it. And that is kind of, in part at least, what this article is talking about. So just some of the top points here. The Sin Virus, understanding spiritual corruption through digital metaphors. Homo Deus, the transhumanist vision of digital godhood, talking about Yuval Noah Homo Harari, as I call him. The Days of Noah, Nephilim, genetic corruption and modern parallels. The New Tower of Babel, digital unity and global communication. Look at that crazy building. Amazon's new headquarters has been nicknamed the Tower of Babel. Yep. So there you go. The emerging hive mind, swarm intelligence and global connectivity. A shot there from Matrix. Spiritual warfare in the digital age. The restoration protocol, understanding God's counter response. So there's a lot to this article. Setting the stage for global deception. And then it goes into part 2. So anyway, pretty wild. And that is a Substack called Wise Wolf. The Wise Wolf. So we'll link to that on the Substack post I send out on probably Tuesday. So anyway, be watching for that.
While Charlie Kirk's death is being used by political agents to attack freedom of speech and to further divide an already divided nation, many are wondering what happens next. And most financial analysts these days will tell you what's next. Radical change in the U.S. economy is coming. The U.S. government is facing a criminally irresponsible debt crisis. The world is losing faith in the dollar and growing more and more disgusted with the crimes against humanity that the USD money printing machines are funding every day. Cutting spending didn't work, and the next attempt to try and save the US debt-based system can be found in the recent Genius Act. In short-term investing, the volatility of Bitcoin can allow a person to profit immensely, but only if they have a stablecoin to convert to when the market corrects itself. This is the foundational purpose of a stablecoin, to maintain a stable value so that one's investment can be temporarily secured. The plan outlined in the Genius Act is to create an increased demand for U.S. debt by requiring stablecoin companies to be backed by U.S. debt, thereby using stablecoins as a way to funnel global money into U.S. government debt. President Putin's advisor, Anton Kobyakov, says that the U.S. is planning a worldwide crypto rug pull to erase its massive debt by creating a U.S. debt-based stablecoin system and then devalue it, robbing the people of their money to pay off its debt.
Right now, America is trying to change the rules in the gold and cryptocurrency markets. Remember how much debt they have, $35 trillion. The US, just as it did in the 1930s and 1970s, will solve its financial problems at the expense of the entire world, driving everyone where? Into the cryptocurrency cloud. Over time, when part of the US national debt is placed in stablecoins, the US will devalue that debt. Once again, in simple terms, right now they have a $35 trillion currency debt. They move it into crypto, into the cloud, devalue it, and start from scratch.
Of course, this is all just money out of thin air, a desperate monetary sleight of hand that doesn't create new wealth and only shows that the system has failed. To show that Russia and other countries will not go along with this, he also said that the world will split up into zones.
The world isn't just moving to a new type of financial system. The world is moving away from fiat money and dividing into zones.
This is referring to a multipolar world where different sets of rules are applied to different zones and signals the strong possibility that BRICS will not be buying U.S. debt in the near future. It is important to remember that the term and the idea of BRICS was conceived in 2001 by an economist at Goldman Sachs. U.S. regulations on stablecoins will likely push the market offshore, where stablecoin issuers will turn to real-world assets over U.S. debt. The U.S. will then have to manage the debt crisis by taxing the American people, most likely with a carbon tax system. Stablecoins have been predominantly used for investing, but they also have the ability to freeze and seize your money, which should please Trump supporters who have been giddy schoolgirls over canceling people who offend them online. The future of technocratic banking control is already being deployed in Vietnam, who recently implemented a nationwide digital ID system that requires both citizens and foreign residents to permit the government to store their biometric data in a centralized database. Participation is not optional, and all accounts without biometric data will be closed. The Vietnamese government has already erased and/or frozen 86 million bank accounts, and Vietnam is just the beta test. This is soon going worldwide. Greg Reese reporting.
It can't happen here.
Yeah, it can't happen here, they said at the end. Well, don't be so sure. That was a pretty good report, I thought. Pretty good explanation from Mr. Reese. So let's look at a few of the questions from this. See that there's a few comments I wanted to address on the broadcast here before we get too late. Ms. Emily saying Erica took charge of Turning Point. Yes, that is correct, and I did know that, and I think I mentioned that. But yeah, she was added on as the CEO, I think, the board brought her on in a unanimous vote, which I think I asked the question last week. Was Turning Point USA a corporation? Do they have a board? Exactly. That information did come out this week as far as that goes. I guess it's been out. I just didn't really know personally. So I think that is key. Yes, she is taking over as the CEO, at least in the short term. We don't know how friendly she is to, say, Israel and other countries. We don't really have that information. I don't really think people know that much about her from what I could tell. So it will be interesting to see what happens. You can probably kind of tell more or less just with who takes over the daily podcast that he used to do. And I think that's something to watch. Who takes over and does some of the touring. She did mention that the touring will continue from campus to campus, different colleges. So the people who will be the speakers on those tours will be interesting to watch. So yes, I do think that her taking over is really the only place they could go with it right now, at least officially, with her stepping into the CEO position. Of course, she's also a mother, so I don't really know, how much say that she will have necessarily day to day versus the board, because the board of directors will have the ultimate say. She's the CEO, and she has a vote, but she doesn't have 100% say in everything that always happens, and they don't always have to follow her direction. So that's kind of how a board works. All right, and then let's see here. True Nature says, if that's the exit wound in his neck, then where the heck's the entry? None of this is adding up. I agree. None of this is adding up. That's a good point. And one of the videos that we mentioned tonight, the one from the channel, it's Overton. What was it? The Overton something. Right here. Outside the Overton. This guy does explain that. And he shows just demonstrating on himself. He says that he thinks right in here somewhere, right beneath Charlie's ear brainstem area is where the entrance would have been to come out right there at his throat. So he does talk about that. And again, this guy is an ex-military guy. He does know what he's talking about, I think. Although, that information may never come out from the good old, ER doctors or the did the autopsy. Whoever the doctors were in those cases, I don't know that they will be willing to or even legally can say anything more than what the FBI or whoever wants them to say. So I don't know. But he does address that in that video. Martino, Vincent Rhodes recently said Charlie was not a real Christian because he was in the NAR movement, New Apostolic Reformation. Yes, and I've heard that. And perhaps he was. But do we really know if he was a real Christian? That would be up to Jesus, I think. So I'm not going to pass judgment on the guy. I think that he really did love Jesus from what I can tell. If he was part of the NAR movement, maybe he secretly wasn't. But it seems to me like he really was. And I don't know how that would work exactly, although I do think that the actual judgment would be in Jesus' hands, not in ours. So I don't personally think I would say something like that about someone's beliefs, and we just don't know. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. I saw ballistic done some ammo on pork butt, and the exit wound was enormous. Yeah, okay. Now he does address this, not the pork butt, but he does address the exit wound size in this video where we're looking at. He does talk about that, and he tends to think that it may not have been the caliber of bullet that hit Charlie that we were told. And he also goes into, I think, talking about the trajectory of where the bullet may have come from, and the one frame in video, one frame of flash that you can see over Charlie's right shoulder, back in the building, back into the right above him. So not people on the ground right next to Charlie, but up and to the right, back behind him, and you can actually see a still shot of what appears to possibly be the bullet coming towards Charlie in one frame in the video. So it is really compelling, I must admit. Tommy says, are troops cleaning up Memphis any? I'm not in Memphis. I'm in Nashville, but Trump did address that recently. It may have been in the, it's funny. You have a memorial service, and it was, he did relay a lot of things about Charlie, but it was almost like a Trump, I think he at one point almost forgot that people weren't there to see him necessarily, and forgot it wasn't a political rally, because he was talking about all the accomplishments of the Trump administration during this memorial service to Charlie Kirk, which was funny. But yeah, he did mention, because Charlie was from Chicago, which I don't know how many people know that, but he was from Chicago originally. Chicago is one of the cities that Trump has talked about going into, Chicago and Memphis. And he mentioned Memphis in particular about going there next. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen or not. Unfortunately, if it does, yes, I think they could severely curb the amount of violence that's happening there. But unfortunately, they also set themselves up pretty easily for some sort of false flag to get blamed. So I think that that's probably what you'd be looking at. You don't really have that with D.C. because it's a federal city. It's not really a separate entity like Chicago would be or like Memphis would be. So I don't know. I tend to think that there probably will be some sort of false flag of some sort. I hope it doesn't happen, but they want to blame Trump for anything and everything. So I do tend to think that that's probably where it's headed. So anyway, let's keep moving here before it gets too late. Wanted to finish out the rest of the articles I had pulled up for you guys. So this is just one of those look at the evil society that we live in kind of articles, and how people aren't raising their kids to care about other people. And this is a very simple, what appears to be black on white racist type of thing that happens. A white 15-year-old who is right here in the picture has had his spine broken in 2 places after a black player for the opposing team performed a wildly illegal, unprovoked body splash at a junior varsity football game in Michigan. What does race have to do with it? Everything. From hockey rinks to track meets, pro wrestling rings to JV football fields, home invasions to public transportation, and we know what that's about, and surveillance video to body cams, virtually every instance of zero impulse control, catastrophic violence we see comes from the same source. Pattern recognition is fundamental to intelligence, and we're done playing stupid to appease people who cheer us being maimed and killed. No consequences have been reported. The 2 schools are, quote, handling the matter internally. Let me mute this. And you can see this guy just taking a huge leap and jumping right on this kid. The play is over. The play is dead, and he just literally body slams this white kid because he can. And boom. And he broke his spine in 2 places. Isn't that lovely? So this is what we're doing now. And you'd have to ask the kid, did you do it because he's white? And I'm sure he would always say no, but, where does the evidence lead at this point? Yep, it tends to be exactly where this tweet is talking about. 6.4 million views. We live in a time when intelligent people are being silenced so that stupid people won't be offended. Yeah. When you teach anti-whiteism, you get anti-whiteism. Yep. Anyway. When you realize your people were being judged by the content of the character all along. Well, you can't really say that because most black people are awesome. But you do have a very, very small percentage, just like you do with white people, a very small percentage of people causing trouble. But it is pretty interesting And yes, he broke this kid's spine, or at least fractured it. I don't know how bad it is, but anyway, I just wanted to mention that just because this is where we are. This is what people are doing to each other now. And speaking of black on white crime, I alluded to it in that last article when I mentioned the subway aspect of it. Well, DeCarlos Brown Jr., has he been set free after Irina Zarutska's boyfriend slams Teresa Stokes? I didn't know Irina had a boyfriend, but I guess this is him maybe. Netizens condemned Judge Roy for his release. So this guy, and before we go too far, he has been released, but for mental health evaluation, quote unquote. Irina Zarutska's boyfriend has publicly condemned Judge Roy, this guy, for ordering the release of her accused killer, DeCarlos Brown Jr., which he literally did it on camera. There's no doubt he did it. He was walking around afterwards with the blood dripping off of his knife saying, "I got that white girl," twice. So anyway, he's released DeCarlos Brown Jr. for mental health evaluation, calling the judge unqualified. He expressed outrage over the justice system's failure. The decision has sparked widespread backlash, with many calling the tragedy preventable and unjust, which of course it was. Amid a wave of shocking incidents across the U.S., from the brutal murder of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska to the shooting of Kirk, serious concerns about public safety and the justice system are growing. No kidding. While national attention is currently focused on Kirk, social media users pointed out that a North Carolina judge identified as Democrat Judge Roy ordered the release of DeCarlos Brown Jr., whom President Trump has described as a career criminal and repeat offender accused of killing Zarutska on a Charlotte light rail. Adding to the outrage, Irina's boyfriend has publicly slammed the judge's decision to let her suspected killer walk free. Judge Roy under scrutiny over Brown's release. This story took a dramatic turn. The news reports revealed that the suspect, DeCarlos Brown, was released from custody by a judge to allow him to seek hospital admission for mental health treatment. After digging more, it was found that the reports of Brown's release for admission to a private hospital were first shared by Ken Silva, a journalist linked to Headline USA, which we've talked about on this show before. This is when Silva reported that Judge Roy Wiggins of North Carolina passed an order that DeCarlos Brown Jr. be sent to the Central Regional Hospital in Charlotte. So he was released, but to a hospital. As soon as a report of his release surfaced on social media, many misinterpreted the court order, falsely claiming that he released him from prison, which I could see why people would do that, to get clicks or because they literally didn't understand what happened. According to Headline USA, in reality, the order signed on September 12th authorized his transfer to a mental health facility to evaluation to determine if he is mentally competent to stand trial. So that was the reason. It was not a full release. He remains in custody as he faces charges in the brutal killing of Irina. Well, and then here's more about the judge. So the thing is, the thing I wanted to mention about this really was I'm not surprised that a Democrat judge would do this. Half expected it. But the thing is, and I'm no mental health expert by any stretch, but you can tell just by watching the footage of him after he murdered her, where he is knowingly pulling off his own sweatshirt and doing whatever he could to cover up the fact that he just killed her, and then escapes off the train as quick as possible. Of course, he's caught pretty quickly. But you can tell there was a lot of, you can't really say premeditated because he just grabbed a knife and started in on her. But you could certainly say that after the fact, he was very careful about what he was doing. And that tells me, at least to some degree, he knew what he was doing. At least then, he certainly did. Of course, that's not what the attorneys and stuff will end up saying. But I do think it's very interesting. So we'll try and keep you guys apprised of what happens with the whole Irina Zarutska thing. Now, this has come up as well. This is on Slay News. Police body cam footage surfaces of Charlie Kirk's killer from 3 years ago. Again, the guy that's been accused of being the killer. I don't know that he actually did it. New information is continuing to emerge regarding the background of Tyler Robinson, the leftist accused of publicly assassinating Kirk. According to New York Post, newly released police body cam footage of Robinson surfaced this week. The footage was from an incident that happened 3 years ago. What was especially interesting about the footage was the fact that Robinson was wearing essentially the same attire that he wore the day he shot Kirk. At the time of the incident, which included Robinson talking to local police about a car accident he was in when he was 19. Body cam footage was mostly Robinson discussing with police officers the car accident he was in a Ford sedan. So it's just, I think the main thing here was that it was him wearing essentially the same clothes, which if it was 3 years ago, I could kind of understand that. Robinson, wearing a gray shirt, black shades, and gray hat, was driving with his brother in the passenger seat. Both, along with another driver, walked away uninjured. The luxury car leaking oil was shown in the footage with its front hood smashed in. So, and then here's the body cam footage here. So you can go watch it if you want to. So that is on Slay News. That's a Slay News article. So this was a story around here this week, kind of a sad situation. Grammy-winning country songwriter dies in plane crash. The plane crash happened to be in North Carolina. Award-winning songwriter Brett James died on Thursday in a single-engine airplane crash in Western North Carolina. He won 2006 Grammy for the Best Country Song for writing a song called Jesus Take the Wheel, famously sung by Carrie Underwood. I think this is maybe his wife. And he was a friend of a family friend of ours. I didn't know him, but he was a good friend of our friend. And very sad situation. I think he was the pilot, from what I can tell. A Cirrus SR-22T single-engine aircraft with a capacity to seat 5 people crashed in a field on Thursday in Franklin, North Carolina, according to FAA. Plane went down near a local elementary school, and all students and staff were unharmed, Macon County officials said Thursday. The FAA noted that 3 people were on board. 3 people were on board. That number included James, and all 3 are believed dead. Yeah, I heard who it was, but now I've forgotten who the other 2 people were. He was the pilot, though. It was his plane. Anyways, he wrote the song Jesus Take the Wheel, famously sung by Carrie Underwood. He was also known for writing or co-writing Taylor Swift's A Perfectly Good Heart, Kenny Chesney's When the Sun Goes Down, and Rascal Flatts' Summer Nights. He also co-wrote hits like Carrie Underwood's Cowboy Casanova, Kelly Clarkson's Mr. Know-It-All, and Jason Aldean's The Truth. So that's pretty wild. Anyway, yes, he will be sorely missed by the country music community. So anyway, I just thought I would mention that. And yet again, another plane crash. That one, I don't really know if the information has come out as to why it went down, why the plane went down. If that was pilot error or most likely some sort of mechanical thing. It doesn't really say here, but they probably haven't determined yet the reason for that. Anyways, sad news. I just wanted to mention that. Nashville connection there. And then this one on Daily Signal. Speakers memorialize Kirk's life and legacy at massive Arizona funeral. That was earlier today. And I pulled this one up mostly because it shows a close-up here of her rings, which have been subject of a lot of internet theories and people making videos and stuff saying she's Erica was a Freemason or involved in that somehow, and who knows. She does have some blingy type rings for sure, but this one with the G and this one with the M are, I can confirm, her kids' names, Gigi and Max. So I don't know what this one is, and it does look questionable. I mean, maybe there's some connection, but also, we just don't know. It's a total guess. So anyways, something that people are looking into. I know a friend of mine, Peggy Hall from The Healthy American, has done quite a few videos on not only her, but the whole, crime scene thing. And she's done some pretty good sleuthing, although I do think some of her conclusions are off as far as some of the things that she's noted. But she's always said in her videos that these are just clues that we're putting together. So I do think that it certainly doesn't hurt to ask questions and look for clues. And that's exactly what she's doing in her videos. And this particular article on Daily Signal is noting in it that, quote, "I forgive him. In this moment of anger and turmoil in the country, people are demanding vengeance and retribution for Charlie's death, with many calling for harsh punishment for the suspected killer, Tyler Robinson. Mrs. Erica Kirk, quote, "I forgive him." She said in between grief and sadness that she forgives her husband's killer, believing that that is what Charlie would do. And so there you go. However, what if he didn't do it? What if he's just admitting to doing it and someone else did it? Like someone over into the reverse, the right side of Charlie. However, in a stunning moment of grace amid grief, Erica took the stage to remind everyone that the teachings of Jesus and her husband were always to forgive. Amid tears of emotion, Kirk declared, "On the cross, our Savior said, 'Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.' That man, that young man, I forgive him," she said. Powerful words that brought the crowd to its feet in an extended standing ovation. "We are the storm," White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said. And Stephen Miller's speech at this memorial service was really, really good, I thought. His was probably the best one. Stephen Miller said that Kirk's assassination aroused a righteous fury in his supporters that our enemies cannot comprehend or understand. Miller used a famous saying to illustrate what is happening in the wake of Kirk's death. "The storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength, and the warrior whispers back, 'I am the storm,'" he said. Miller said that Kirk's wife Erica and the countless people who partner with him are the storm. So there you go. Thought that was pretty interesting. So that is a Daily Signal piece. And then Leo Hohmann's articles that I have pulled up here. This one from the main website, leohohmann.com. Muslim mayor of Dearborn, President Trump, and other notable stories you might have missed in an overall bad week for freedom of speech. So this is dated September 18th. "This has not been a good week for freedom of speech in America. Let's start with what went down in Michigan, and we'll get to the federal level and what the Trump administration is threatening to do that would put a big chill on free speech, no matter if you count yourself as part of the left or the, quote, right." So, shaking hands with Keir Starmer, the right arm of King Charles. Trump gets royal red carpet treatment from globalist King Charles as unpopular UK government pushes digital IDs and war with Russia. This is something that I've mentioned pretty recently, I guess. Thinking, when will Trump be going over to make good on the invitation he was handed in the Oval Office directly by Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, to go have a nice little sit-down visit and chat with King Charles, the soon-to-be biblical Antichrist, in my opinion and in many, many other people's opinions. The king has an ancient grudge against Russia and needs Donald to settle the score. How about that? UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has once again stated his interest in implementing digital IDs to combat illegal immigration and illegal labor in his country. Why should we in the U.S. care? I will attempt to explain the bigger picture. Well, we should care because they want to bring it here as soon as possible. That's why. So I'm sure that he makes that point here. Classic Hegelian dialectic: create the problem, listen to the backlash of those reacting to the problem, and then come in with the solution. And the solution always just happens to advance the agenda of the globalists. In this case, is to register every human being with a digital ID starting at birth in accordance UN Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goal 16.9. Trump, like Starmer, has said, we need a, quote, proper biometric tracking system to keep illegal immigration in check. So that's the whole thing here. They've let all of these illegals come flooding into all of these countries, including the U.S., and then they say, oh, we need to have everybody on the digital ID system. Except the illegals, of course. Just the rest of us. So anyway, but it is interesting. I was looking to see what it says here about the king and his ancient grudge against Russia. I was looking to see what that's about. Question, have you ever heard President Trump criticize Keir Starmer? Have you ever heard Trump criticize the movement toward biometric digital identities? Mr. Starmer is the leader of the UK Labour Party, which is the equivalent of the Democrat Party that Trump supposedly despises here in the U.S., but Trump never criticizes anything Starmer does, and he has laid nothing but accolades at the feet of his good friend King Charles while in London this week. The British royal family under King Charles rolled out the red carpet for Trump today. He is one of their most prized assets. Trump has a lot of money invested in the UK with his golf courses in Scotland. True, that's a good point. The UK is the nerve center of anti-Russia propaganda emanating from the Western media and pushing for war with Russia. Trump, at the end of the day, will side with his king against Russia and lead America into World War III, according to what Leo Hohmann's Substack is saying here. I don't disagree. I'm just saying that makes a lot of sense. The digital reset cannot be fully implemented until people are utterly desperate and poor. World War III will help accomplish that. Wow. That does make a lot of sense. So that is one of the most recent articles on leohohmann.substack.com. And then this one as well. Trump lifts sanctions on Syria's new anti-Christian jihadist government and invites its foreign minister to Washington. The truth about why the U.S. had to overthrow the autocratic Assad regime and replace it with a group of Christophobic Islamic butchers. Yes, and then here's a church here that's completely torn apart. The Associated Press reports that Syria's foreign minister was in Washington on Thursday, September 18th, kicking off the first official visit to the U.S. by a top Syrian official in 25 years as the new government in Damascus struggles to recover from civil war and boost relations with the West, following the fall of autocrat Bashar Assad, which seemed to be pretty well liked by the people that were his subjects, if you want to call them that. But anyway, he's now hiding somewhere in Russia, last I heard. The new Syrian government is filled with bloodthirsty Sunni jihadists, but the sick implication of the AP's article is that they're pro-Western, so it doesn't matter. Yes, which of course they're not. Talking about Syria and embracing the crazy new leaders of Syria. That's not good. And then this one too. Permanent standard time emerges as clear winner for public health in landmark study. So, we have a little while yet before we go off of daylight savings, but that is what this is about. A new Stanford University study concludes that adopting permanent standard time is the healthiest option for the public, which means they'll never do it. As it aligns clocks more closely with the natural solar cycle, the research found that the biannual clock change itself is the most harmful, creating a state of societal-wide jet lag that disrupts the body's circadian rhythms and weakens its synchronization. The model predicts significantly public health benefits from permanent standard time, including an estimated 2.6 million fewer cases of obesity and 300,000 fewer strokes annually. So again, they'll never do this. Permanent standard time is superior to permanent daylight savings time because it provides crucial morning light, which is essential for stabilizing our internal clock, whereas DST delays sunrise and extends disruptive evening light. The findings place scientists in direct opposition with political efforts like the Sunshine Protection Act, which seeks to make DST permanent and provide a data-backed argument for lawmakers to prioritize public health over commercial interests. So there is apparently a lobby for daylight savings time. Did you have any idea about that? I didn't know about that. It's the powerful daylight savings time lobby who want to keep it. But yeah, if permanent standard time is the other option, you can bet we'll never see it if it's really that good for us. All right, and then Wine Press Substack. I thought this one was worth looking at. Agenda 2030. And this was mentioned in the Reese Report video we watched a little while ago. Vietnam deletes 86 million bank accounts for not registering them with biometric digital IDs as country rapidly moves to cashless society. So welcome to Vietnam, I guess. The ultimate goal is to build an interconnected digital ecosystem that is linked with other economic sectors, serving as a driving force for promoting the digital economy. Earlier this month, Vietnam made the controversial move, yeah, you could call it that, to delete over 86 million bank accounts. I wonder how many there were that were not linked to nationally mandated biometric fingerprint and facial recognition digital IDs. The country has mandated VN-EID, a digital ID that both residents and foreign visitors must sign up for, which covers biometric data, passports, spending habits, criminal history, medical records, and more that are stored on IDs. So the VN-EID is what it's called. Wow. So they just deleted 86 million bank accounts because people didn't register those bank accounts with biometric digital ID. So this is where we're headed. This is a little preview of what's to come, if you ask me. All right, and then let's see here. Gateway Pundit articles. Let's look at just some of the top headlines. Far-left actress Jamie Lee Curtis sobs when discussing Man of Faith, Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah, there are definitely a few people on the left who have been, crazy liberal, like fanatic type people who have really come around with the whole Charlie Kirk thing. And I'd heard before that she was one of them. Not saying she's changing her politics, but she's at least agreeing that he didn't deserve what he got. Utah College to keep the flame of Charlie Kirk alive with comeback tour. Cuba's shadow army in Ukraine. Havana's silent alliance with Moscow. Erica Kirk on her husband's assassin, I forgive him. Tulsi Gabbard. She did a good job in her speech today as well. Hillsdale College professor Dr. Larry Arnn gives honorary degree to Charlie. Oh, here's the picture of Musk sitting in the box there with Trump today, trying to bury the hatchet, as it were. And then, let's see here. Separate articles I pulled up. Tens of thousands worship Jesus Christ at Charlie Kirk's memorial service. So, say what you want. I do think that is a good thing. Charlie Kirk's memorial service is officially underway. This was earlier today. And has kicked off with a time of worship. Tens of thousands packed into the stadium in Glendale to come together to honor Kirk's legacy, and service begins with some of Charlie's favorite Christian worship songs. As several notable worship leaders have taken the stage to lead the crowd in praises and hymns, thousands have been seen on video raising their hands in exaltation to Jesus. So I think that's good. That's great. So you can say what you want about Charlie, if he was NAR or whatever. It's not up to us, guys. That is Jesus and Jesus alone. And note, this dude was not there today. At least they never showed him, and he didn't give a speech or anything. So not really that surprised. I think he is a Hindu, or Hindi, whatever the proper term is. Kash Patel confirms FBI investigating, quote, all theories surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination, including accomplices, Discord chats, bullet angle, shot location, weapon transport, and potential hand signals. which means if Kash Patel is saying it, you can bet none of that is true. I don't trust this guy whatsoever. Going back to his swearing in, and well, before the swearing in, going back to the Senate hearing, confirmation hearing, Kash Patel, you'll remember I said at the time, he very clearly lied under oath when he admitted to not knowing Stu Peters and pretended like he had no idea who that was when he was clearly asked. And at the time, he had been on Stu's show 8 different times, and he said under oath he has no idea who Stu Peters is. I said at that time, we can't trust the guy because he's lying under oath. So that is still where I'm at. I don't trust him. And I think that the fact that he's saying that they're going to be looking at all these different things, including the bullet angle, shot location, hand signals, all that stuff, means they're not really. Or they're only going to look at it in a cursory type of way, and it won't actually make the final report, whatever that is. So I think that's where it's headed. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that and just mostly just say that, Patel said in his final statement a few days back that he would see Charlie, and he told Charlie he would see him in Valhalla, which is a kind of a Hindu type of reference. And I figured just based on that, we probably would not see him at the memorial service, and that seems to be the case. I mean, he could have been there and they just never showed him, but they showed everyone else in the cabinet, including, all of the people who were on the stage. Many of them gave speeches today, and he was not one of them. So that was pretty interesting, huh? I guess it would kind of make it look like, well, he's not really doing the investigation if he's not there, but I still half expected him to be there. So we mentioned Trump and the visit to the royals, King Charles and so forth. Well, if you didn't get enough of that and you need more, then, well, there's a 2-hour and 10-minute video on the Royal Family channel. We'll link to it in the Substack post. I'm sure that's just what you want. Royal Family hosts President Trump in Windsor. And you can see Rubio was there with him too. I don't know who all else. I did not watch it, but this is them going through the visit with King Charles. U.S. President Donald Trump and Melania have completed a 2-day state visit hosted by Charles and Camilla. The visit featured formal ceremonies, a carriage procession, and a lavish state banquet at Windsor Castle. The First Lady also carried out 2 joint engagements, one with the Queen and another with the Princess of Wales. Here are the highlights from the state visit, and then it's, like I said, a 2-hour video. So it's pretty long. Anyways, it is there, and I figured that they would have some clips, and there are a few clips of the visit on this channel as well. So if you want a 10-minute video or whatever, there are some shorter ones. All right, and then a couple of articles from Not the Beat. I thought this one was a little crazy, but that is Jasmine Crockett. She said it hurts her heart, which I guess she has one, hurts her heart that only 2 Caucasians joined her in voting against honoring Charlie Kirk. Yeah, earlier this week we told you on Not the Bee about the 58 Democrats who voted against the resolution to honor Charlie Kirk in the House of Representatives. Yeah. Democrats cast 58 noes on a simple vote to honor Charlie Kirk's life, condemn his assassination, and then AOC trashed Charlie's name. The House passed a resolution Friday to honor the life of the political martyr Charlie Kirk and to condemn his assassination. But because we aren't race-obsessed weirdos, we didn't comb through dozens of names to count up how many people the Democrat caucus voted based on race. But here's someone who did. And then they're showing this clip here of Jasmine Crockett. Quote, "It hurts my heart that only 2 Caucasians voted against honoring Charlie Kirk." So it's all about race, isn't it? Talk about race obsessed. This is the lady who wants you to think that Charlie Kirk is racist. The lady is calling out her own party as racist because it was almost exclusively people of color voting against honoring the recently assassinated conservative activist. Talk about race obsessed. Yeah, this honestly is one of the most shocking things I've seen yet from Crockett, this guy says, in this Not the Bee article. So I'm not really that surprised. I'm sure you guys aren't either. And speaking of crazy leftists murdering people, well, this was an attempt here. Report, attempted Kavanaugh killer from 2022 identifies as a woman. Discussed assassination attempt on Discord. How's this for an update? Remember the pro-abort young man upset about gun control who was caught in an assassination plot against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh? Well, there's a little bit more to the story, and I wonder why it's coming out now. The man who attempted to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh identifies as a transgender woman and was deeply mentally ill and suicidal, according to the documents obtained by Daily Wire. Well, would you look at that? Another mentally unstable trans person attempting to perpetrate murder plot against conservatives. How surprising. See, I'm wondering that if there's supposed to be some sort of cover up here as far as who actually did the Charlie killing. I'm wondering if there will be an ongoing attempt to even have more trans people shooting up different groups or individuals or whatever. And I wonder why they brought this story out now. Seems really strange to me, and probably not a coincidence, is it? I mean, why now? Why would they report this now? This is from 3 years ago. But yeah, he was a trans person, another one. So anyway, I don't know. I thought this one was pretty funny, actually. This is a Not the Bee article. Some of them are funny. Sometimes they're more serious. Steak and Shake confirms that it put up a billboard calling for Cracker Barrel to fire its CEO. Yeah, and that was the billboard. That was actually here in Nashville. I didn't see it, but I saw the tweets about it. It's just a blank white billboard with the new logo that says fire the CEO. Everybody knew what it meant, though. If the brain trust at Cracker Barrel thought all of its public relations nightmares was in the past after its mea culpa and pledge to do away with its, quote, modernization, they can think again as a billboard appeared in Nashville calling for the firing of the company's CEO. People driving through West Nashville are seeing a billboard along I-40 that says, fire the CEO. I'm going to have to go find it. That is pretty funny. The billboard itself appears to resemble a recent rebranded Cracker Barrel logo, which was reverted by the company following backlash. They put this billboard up just outside of Nashville on the way to Lebanon, Tennessee. Oh, Lebanon. Okay. That is not... wait a minute. That is not West Nashville. That would be East Nashville. Yeah. Cracker Barrel is headquartered in Lebanon. Lebanon is... and they don't pronounce it Lebanon in Tennessee. It's Lebanon. And Lebanon is East Nashville, not West. So they got their directions wrong here. So I guess I can't go see it because I'm more on the east side, on the west side. Steak and Shake. Yes, we are responsible for this billboard. It's pretty funny that Steak and Shake did it. Even Shaq is surprised. Steak and Shake, which has built quite a track record of taking strong stances on current issues, from moving away from using seed oils in favor of beef tallow in its food and accepting Bitcoin. I didn't know that. It's now apparently setting up aggressive billboards calling for the firing of another restaurant chain CEO. That's pretty funny. Anyway, yeah, Steak and Shake. Out to get them. Crazy. All right, and then this one, this is one of those self-own type things. So check this out. I had to read into it a little bit just to kind of understand what was going on. Opinion. Ben Stiller had the most unintentionally funny response to ABC's sacking of Jimmy Kimmel. Disney-owned ABC made headlines yesterday by suspending late-night host Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely following a firestorm of controversy surrounding the recent monologue that he gave. And we heard that earlier tonight. I don't know if you guys missed it, but he was basically blamed MAGA for Charlie Kirk's assassination, saying that the kid that shot Charlie was MAGA, when in fact he was far from it. During this segment, Kimmel falsely claimed that an assassin of political commentator Kirk was a MAGA Republican, statement quickly proven untrue. The inflammatory comment ignited outrage, especially from those demanding accountability for spreading misinformation during a sensitive time. Many also noted Kimmel's tone lacked even basic respect for Kirk's family amid the incident. Enter Ben Stiller, this guy, the Zoolander. The actor-director who hasn't exactly been a go-to sage in political discourse decided this was his moment to take a stand. Quoting the announcement of Kimmel's suspension on Twitter, or X, depending on your level of Elon fatigue, Stiller declared, quote, "This isn't right." So this is what he tweeted, and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, he's just disagreeing that Disney's, ABC's pulling Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely after the late night host recent remarks about Charlie Kirk. Move comes as ABC affiliate groups told network that they would be dropping the host, and then Ben Stiller just tweeted, quote, "This isn't right." Okay, so that makes sense, right? And then, just as quickly as he joined the conversation, he shut it down, literally. Stiller disabled replies to the tweet almost immediately, making it impossible for anyone to engage, question, agree, or point out the glaring irony. In effect, he posted a complaint about a private company silencing commentary they didn't like while silencing any commentary he didn't like. So that is the literal definition of it's okay when we do it, which is something that I've been saying for a long time. So there you go. He shut down the ability to comment instantly about an article that had to do with free speech, quote unquote. Yep, there's no irony there, huh? So this one, I thought I would mention just because, you know, it goes on. British rock singer Morrissey has been forced to cancel 2 scheduled U.S. shows owing to what have been described as, quote, credible threats to assassinate him on stage. Yeah, he's been pretty outspoken as far as just conservatism in general. British rock singer Morrissey. New York Post reports the canceled concerts were set for Friday at Foxwoods Resort Casino in Connecticut, and then another one in Boston. The post on Morrissey's official social media page reads, "In recent days, there's been a credible threat on Morrissey's life," adding that out of an abundance of caution for the safety of both the artist and the band, the 2 dates were pulled. So now they're going after singers. So there you go. Anyway, Morrissey. Morrissey has become a pariah in the music industry establishment due to his politically incorrect opinions confronting the conformist creed of the bedwetting mob. For a time, the former Smiths frontman, who maintains a loyal hardcore fan base, couldn't find a record deal due to the blisteringly honest themes of his work, which including a whole album condemning the May 2017 Manchester Arena bombing by the Islamic jihadists. Well, yeah, you can't condemn that. I mean, they're the party of murder, right? Anyways, pretty interesting about Morrissey. Wow. And then this one also on modernity.news. TPUSA teams were not allowed to use security system that would have saved Charlie's life. Turning Point USA's chief operating officer, also named Tyler, by the way, which is kind of weird, Tyler Bowyer, has shockingly revealed that Charlie's security team were denied the authority to use a key security system on the day he was assassinated, so that it probably would have saved his life. As we highlighted footage of Charlie predicting he could be shot and killed, taken from his own show months earlier, has gone viral. This prompted one respondent to ask how TF was TPUSA secure. How was their security so lax that they missed a shooter on the only building with a clear shot? They practically had one rooftop to keep an eye on, the user remarked. The answer to your question is that our team has a drone system for watching perimeter and hard-to-see places. They were not allowed to use it. So how about that? So there you go. You have the critics of the security team saying, why were these roofs left unexposed? You guys weren't doing your job. And he's saying they did have a drone system, but they weren't allowed to use it. So the question becomes, who said no? I mean, that would be the next question to ask. He continued, the universities and university police department, who are separate from bigger city departments and therefore completely influenced by the university are notorious for shutting down drones and extending security perimeters, particularly with armed guards, because they often complain about militarizing the campus. I don't think they'll have a choice after this, do you? Then came the shocking kicker. We used the drone system in every event possible, including at our headquarters, and it would have saved Charlie's life in this instance to overcome the police's decisions on watch and perimeter, Boyer claimed. He added that most universities don't allow the drones or even armed security for events like TPUSAs. Yeah, imagine they will have to change their protocols now, don't you? Thought that was pretty interesting, and it kind of lets the TPUSA security guys, at least to some degree, off the hook. As far as that goes, there's still other questions about things, I'm sure, like hand signals and so forth, but who knows? And then this is the video clip that they were alluding to. I don't have it queued up, but you guys can pretty easily find it here. It's on modernity.news. Chilling video of Charlie predicting his own death to Utah senator goes viral some months ago. Disturbing video shows that Charlie was all too aware of the threat level he was facing. He stated, "My fear," this is a quote, "my fear, and I hope I'm wrong. Let's stay in prayer that I'm wrong, that someone is going to get shot the same way that House Majority Leader Steve Scalise got shot and, God forbid, killed. Even more remarkable is that he was communicating that fear to Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah, the same state where he was assassinated last week." So here's a clip here. The left is creating a pressure cooker with so many of their rank-and-file paramilitary troops. Charlie further warned, chillingly adding that very well might result in one of us getting shot or killed. God forbid that happens. Wow. So he actually stated all of that on his own show. So that's pretty spooky, huh? Crazy. Watch President Trump and Elon Musk reconcile at Charlie's memorial today. I did notice that they showed that a couple times on camera. Tech entrepreneur Musk and Trump chummed it up at Charlie Kirk's memorial service Sunday, appearing to bury the hatchet following their famous split. The pair were seen shaking hands, sitting together, and speaking to one another at Kirk's memorial today. Charlie managed to bring the two of them back together, commented journalist Nick Sortor. Nick does good work. So yeah, I don't know if it really did, but at least it did for the moment. And I know many of you guys don't care for either one of those guys, but personally, I don't know. I feel like, Elon's into some questionable things ultimately, but he's done some good things as well. So yeah, he apparently gave an interview as well here. So that is an InfoWars article. Erica Kirk says she will not seek death penalty for Charlie's killer. Well, I don't think it'll be up to her, will it? So this was from a few days ago now. Says she will not seek the death penalty against her husband's assassin. New York Times article on Sunday. Kirk said she would leave the decision up to the government, as she did not want to have the killer's blood on her hands when she meets her maker. So there you go. Anyway, and again, I don't personally think the kid did it. But what do I know? Anyway, that is an InfoWars article. And then Trump blasts Bondi. So this is maybe too little too late, but It's interesting that it is being talked about now. Trump blasts Bondi, all talk, no action on guilty as hell Schiff, Comey, and James. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now, he said. President Trump blasted Attorney General Pam Bondi, calling her out for failing to prosecute several deep state coup plotters. And then there's a video here. Alex comments on the Truth Social post from Trump slamming his Attorney General. Many people are saying that she's either incompetent, or some people are saying she's competent but lazy. Personally, I think she was put into position ultimately just to keep the status quo, from what I can tell, just so nothing would get done, and she's done a really good job at that. In her missing desk, or her desk at Fox News, wherever it is. Anyway, that is a InfoWars article. And then one more. White House pushes to approve $6 billion in weapon sales to Israel through Congress. Despite growing international pressure on the Netanyahu government, which has of late admitted it is coming under increasing global isolation due to the Gaza war, the Trump administration plans to keep the arms flowing and keep it going stronger than ever. Makes you wonder what is going on here. It's because the real president is Bibi Netanyahu, I think. Anyway, that is an InfoWars article. GeoWatch for this week. Geoengineering Watch Global Alert News, September 20th, disastrous forecast. Subcommittee demands transparency of government weather and climate engineering. That's from oversighthouse.gov. Did this government hearing move the fight forward or backward? Double catastrophe scenario is the phrase the climate science community has coined to describe the consequences of stopping climate engineering once started. Which, that's pretty funny, huh? The controllers want us to believe that halting climate engineering would cause worse consequences than continuing. This is a blatant lie. Geoengineering operations are about power and control. Climate catastrophes are wreaking havoc all over the world, with worse coming at blinding speed. So feel free to have a look at that. Geoengineeringwatch.org. And then the scheduled weather, we always have to talk about that. Scheduled weather for the week. Looks like it's going to be hot pretty much everywhere, unless you're down here in that little tiny sliver. But it's going to be hot everywhere, it looks like. So get ready for more heat. This is September 27th to October 1st. Is the dates on that. And then climateandeconomy.com. I usually look at the headlines on this just to see what all is being reported here that doesn't make the mainstream news. Sea surface temperatures are running a fever across most of northern oceans. Not a good look, I should say, not a good look going into the fall. So above normal SSTs mean more evaporation and heavier precipitation, warmer air, slow sea ice growth, and unusual weather patterns. Buckle up. So, wow. The blob is back, except this time it stretches across the entire North Pacific. A record-breaking and astonishingly expansive marine heat wave is underway in the Pacific Ocean, stretching out about 5,000 miles from the waters around Japan to the west coast of the United States. So the entire Pacific, it sounds like, is extremely warm, according to this. 2025 mass balance of the Greenland ice sheet has been published. If you are under 30 years old, you have never known a positive year. Wow. So the Greenland ice sheet getting smaller and smaller. So anyway, there's more on here about all kinds of crazy weather going on. Again, things that don't really get talked about too much, in the mainstream at least. Lots of floods and crazy, hailstorms and all kinds of wackiness. So anyway, that is climateandeconomy.com. And then thought I would mention this one. Trump deflects Gaza genocide claims, points to October 7th as genocide at the highest level. So he's calling the genocide that happened the October 7, 2023 stand down. Even though he's not calling it a stand down, I am. President Trump forcefully pushed back against a recent UN report accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, redirecting attention to Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel as the true act of genocide in the conflict. So if you had a question about genocide, don't worry. It's not Israel doing it. Never was. It was only that one day on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas invaded, and that was the only genocide, according to Trump. Sure. I don't think I buy that one. Do you? So that's really sad, actually. But I'm not surprised. It was a stand down. They let it happen so that they could go into Gaza and do exactly what they're doing right now and have been. So anyways, that was the end of the news for tonight. I'm looking to see if we have any interesting things here on my X account, x.com/The Diamond Report. The Diamond RPRT is where it is. Oh yes, here's the true. I retweeted this one because it's so true. Here's President number 45, Donald Trump. Here's President number 46, which was just the auto pin. And here's President number 47. Looks a little bit like Bibi Netanyahu, doesn't it? Democrats, this is progressive, this is extremist. In case you needed to know. Democrats went from celebrating people burning Teslas to celebrating public assassinations in less than 9 months. Yes, don't forget that. And again, the number of arrests so far, the Russian collusion hoax, 0. January 6th, 0. Mar-a-Lago raid, 0. Biden auto pen, 0. 2020 election, 0. Epstein pedophile arrests, 0. COVID, 0. Benghazi, 0. Doge findings, 0. And Ukraine impeachment hoax, 0 arrests. So that shows you the progress so far. We're making good progress. Looks like. Anyway, yeah, there's some interesting stuff here on X. If you guys want to follow what I'm reposting mostly on there, it's a good option. I was a Johnny Carson fan. I thought this clip that came out when the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing happened this last week was good. Anytime you watch a clip of Johnny Carson, you realize what a steaming pile of trash Jimmy Kimmel and late night comedy have become. Yeah, I mean, he was a classy guy. Say what you want about him. I'm sure he had his foibles like anyone else, but he knew to stay out of politics, and he did. So, unlike the current late night guys, which apparently that's all they care about, is talking about politics. So, yeah, countries with the highest number of arrests for online comments in 2023, that would be the United Kingdom for 12,183 arrests for online comments. Now, that was 2 years ago. Imagine what it is now. I don't even know if we'll ever see those numbers, but the 2023 numbers are just now coming out. It's not looking too good if you're in the UK. All right, and then I've mentioned the Substack multiple times tonight. You can see the link in the crawler across the bottom, diamonddisc.substack.com. Get you to the Diamond Report on here. You just put your email address in and hit subscribe, and you can be on the list of fun. So, yes, please join the list. It's completely free, and you'll be glad you did. You get all of the emails just sent right to all of the links of the articles I talked about tonight sent right to your inbox. Pretty handy. And then if you want to help the show, if you want to help me out in some small way or a larger way, it's up to you, but I would certainly appreciate that. I do have just a handful of people that are helping me defray the cost of putting this show together. Spend a lot of time on this show. You might not know it, but I spend a lot of time on this show, especially the post-production aspect of it, and spend a number of my days working on the show. and getting things posted everywhere that needs to go during the week. So anyways, if you want to help, no pressure, but it is there, and Subscribestar is probably the best way to do that, starting at $5 a month. And then the other option is, I mentioned Substack already. Got a few people on there who are giving as well. I think I've got 8 total people giving on Substack and 7 on Subscribestar. So 15 people are the reason you are here tonight, and then we're doing this show because they are helping me to fund this operation. All right. And then if you want a free option, though, there are some different things you can do to help me out, and subscribing to my different channels and putting the show out there is a huge help. It's a huge help for me. So Take It to the Lord End Times Dates is the name of my YouTube channel. Unlike all the others, they're just named Diamond Disc for the most part on most platforms. That's my company name, DIAMONDISC. You can find the Diamond Report or Diamond Disc on most of these other platforms like Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon, and even on Facebook. So you can find the Diamond Report in those places. However, on YouTube, it's called something different because my original channel got deleted. Isn't that nice? Several years back when the You Know What's rolled out, my channel was wiped out literally the same month. So anyway, and then make sure you're on the band group. Make sure you're in the band group. Got a few more people join this week, so that was cool, and appreciate that. Got people just in there sharing information. Really, it's pretty much what it is. I post links in there when I come across something interesting that I think is worth sharing with the group. Then I put it in there, and then they, members can post in there. So you can post. And it's not a dating site, just remember that. But members can post, links to videos and articles and things like that. So feel free to join the band group. And that link is in the chat, I'm assuming. Let me take a look here. Susan says, I had a coffee in my Diamond Disc mug this morning. Oh, that's nice. Yes. Yes, I didn't really show you guys the store, but we do have a store as well. And that is listed in the crawler across the bottom. Shop.thediamond.report is where that is. Yes, we do have various different options there, t-shirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of stuff. I haven't really been promoting it lately just because, I haven't updated any of the products with the new logo for the Diamond Report, which you can see there on your screen. So that's mainly why. However, the products are still really good, and I'm still going to keep using this logo. See this one right here. I'm still going to be using that as well. I'm kind of going to use both. And so it's not really going to be out of date necessarily. I will probably add some new products at some point with the new logo as well. So stay tuned for that. I'll let you know when I do that, though. But thank you. Appreciate that. So the next Diamond Report will be on the 28th, September 28th. So look for us then. That will be 10 p.m. Central on the 28th. And as I said at the beginning of the show, or near the beginning, watch for anything interesting happening in Israel on the 24th, just because the whole live streaming thing with the horn blasts and stuff for the Feast of Trumpets / Rosh Hashanah, I think will probably be something. I don't know what. And we kind of postulated what that could be potentially last week on the show. So the 24th, something in Israel. I don't know. Who knows what's going to go down, but hopefully it won't be anything terrible. But they do have several things on the horizon now that they've done the red heifer sacrifice. Now that that's happened, that took place in July. The next step, really, before they can think about building a temple, from my understanding, is they need their Moshiach. And we've talked about on Take It to the Lord in Prayer End Times Dates YouTube channel who that might be. It's a guy named the Yanuka. And he's somebody that I still think that is worth watching. He could be that guy. And if you look into it a little bit, you'll see that they actually have two different messiahs. They have one that's more of a militaristic type of messiah, who I think personally will most likely be King Charles when it comes to that time. The militaristic guy that's the Messiah. Now the other guy is more of a Messiah for the people, and that's a non-military person, and that would be who I'm talking about, possibly the Eunucha. And that is a very interesting person that we've done a number of videos on End Times Dates. They're on this YouTube channel, so feel free to look at that if you haven't seen that, don't know who I'm talking about. It's a pretty interesting guy. And he was even healing people there for a while. I'm not sure if that's still happening. I haven't heard any more reports of that, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, and that goes back a few years now when we started looking into what he was doing. So anyways, let's keep an eye on Israel this week, in particular on the 24th. I think that's when the live stream's supposed to happen. And I will try and keep an eye on that myself. And they're quite a few hours ahead, so I'm not really sure what would happen, but anyway, something to definitely watch out for. Anyway, we'll do it all again next week, and we will sign off for the night. It's getting kind of late here, 1 a.m. So, yes, thank you guys for joining me tonight. I really appreciate that. And it's been an interesting ride, huh? There's lots of interesting stuff going on in the world, and let's just say there is never a dull moment. That is for sure. So keep your Lord close to you. Lord Jesus, keep him close to you, and that's really the best thing you can do. I think it was interesting to see that memorial service today and just watch that and see people's faces and realize that there is really a deep, abiding love for Jesus Christ still. And it's hard to believe just because, we go through the headlines and talk about how crazy the world is. And man, it is getting crazier and crazier all the time, but there are still a lot of people in this world, including, I think, probably pretty much all you guys in chat and people that watch this show that really love the Lord. And that is the main reason that I'm doing this show, is to bring glory to Jesus. And that is my first and foremost thing that I want to do, bring glory to Jesus and to help show that we are living in the end times. And here are the headlines. Here are the prophecies that are coming true right before our eyes. And that seems to be what's unfolding. So anyways, we will do it again next week. Again, September 28th, 10 p.m. Central. And love you guys. Hope you guys have a really great week this week coming up. And we'll keep an eye on the sky and see what happens as far as Israel on the 24th. And from there, I guess we will talk about it all next week. So love you guys. We'll talk to you again real soon. And we'll play one more short video on the way out, and we'll wrap it up for tonight. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
President Trump, as a supporter who voted for you 3 times, I am hoping and praying that you will revisit what Barack Obama and Joe Biden got rid of back in 2013, which is the Smith-Mundt Act, which held news corporations accountable for lying to the American people and spreading propaganda instead of truth. I think instead of bringing it back as a Smith-Mundt Act, you name it the Charlie Kirk Act, you make it a law, and you make it damn near impossible for these people to continue to lie to the American public, which has brought chaos, hatred, division, and anarchy all across this country.
The Smith-Mundt Act was twisted 13 years ago by Manchurian candidate Barack Obama into a tool to foment a color revolution in the United States. Back in 1948, President Harry S. Truman signed the Smith-Mundt Act into law, a Cold War-era move to counter Soviet propaganda with a global charm offensive. The State Department was tasked with painting a picture of the U.S. as the land of the free, sending students, scholars, and professionals overseas to build bridges and showcase our way of life.
The United States is trying to get the Washington view of the crisis to the Iranian people through the voice of America.
But here's the caveat that continues to fly under the radar when it comes to the Smith-Mundt Act. The act explicitly banned government-produced materials from being distributed domestically. Why? To protect the American people from being fed state propaganda and to keep the domestic media industry from getting steamrolled by the whims of lobbyists and the madness of politicians. And more importantly, but apparently not a concern at the time, to protect the First Amendment rights and organic consensus from an intelligence department swaying Americans toward total mind control and rapid decline. Truman had signed the National Security Act of 1947 into law, which had also created the CIA. Truman created a monster, but the Smith-Munn Act was a leash, whether they knew it or not. The modernization allowed the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors, now rebranded as the U.S. Agency for Global Media, to make their foreign-targeted materials like videos, audio, and films available inside the U.S. upon request, including through FOIA demands and online platforms. But the floodgates had been opened, and the safeguards are now as flimsy as a paper wall in a hurricane.
Very simply, Obama gave it a reboot in 2012. So, no matter how outrageous the propaganda may be, it's completely legal.
Propaganda, in other words, a false narrative for whatever specific purpose, is now much, much easier to perpetrate on the people.
This modernization didn't just make government content accessible. It unleashed a torrent of psychological warfare that's been weaponized by the mainstream media, creating a feedback loop of division and radicalization.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism, is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
And we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
59 million mentally ill Americans, folks already struggling with anxiety, depression, or worse, who no longer have a mental health care system because it was gutted by progressive failures, being bombarded with carefully curated messages that amplify fear, distrust, and outrage. The mainstream media, already a battleground for corporate agendas, appealing to the organic demands of an American audience, gets outflanked by government-backed content, pitting neighbor against neighbor in a cultural civil war. And where does this lead?
Take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Release the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We have to keep our eye on the war, and everybody needs to pick up a weapon and get involved, because this is for the safety and lasting of the country.
The modernization of Smith-Munn has fueled a pipeline of radical ideas repackaged as academic theory. Professors, emboldened by access to globalist narratives, push anti-American, collectivist doctrines that demonize free markets and glorify centralized control. The result? Students graduate not as free thinkers, but as foot soldiers for a Marxist agenda, ready to tear down the very system that gave them the freedom to learn, ready to shoot someone like Charlie Kirk.
This is what's so frustrating. I tried to tell people in the higher levels of Republican leadership 3 or 4 years ago, there will be Marxists running the Democrat Party in the next 10 years.
Right.
And they said, oh, Charlie, you're overreacting. I said, no, I'm on these universities. I see what they're producing. It's worse than ever. There's another 1,000 Ocasio-Cortezes waiting to come in the lecture halls right now. And if we don't do something about that to raise our generation of freedom fighters up, we're going to have a big problem.
Y'all the people who are spreading propaganda, letting the rise of fascism and putting women down. That's not what it is. No, that's what it is.
We have to start calling his supporters racist as well. That MAGA symbol has come to represent something. It is the new Nazi symbol. It is the new hood.
Because they're not a party, right? They're Sinn Féin to the IRA. They're the PLO to Hamas. They're a dime store front for a terrorist movement.
The Republican Party is basically a domestic terrorist cell at this point, and they should be treated as such.
There are elements of the GOP that are starting to look like the jihadists.
Not a political party. They're a white nationalist movement. They're a fascist threat to our nation. That's not hyperbolic. That's academic.
Would have once seemed hyperbolic, but it increasingly does feel like the Republican Party has become a death cult, and it's all about Donald Trump.
There is no alternative right now, because the Republican Party project today
is a fascist authoritarian project.
Fact is, Republicans in Congress are still in the grip of the ultra-MAGA agenda.
Party of dupes, party of knuckleheads, party of weirdos, party of freaks. So that is a simple message. And underneath that, it's the party of nothing.
It has become an authoritarian embracing cult. It is fascist.
Reinstate the Smith month to its original purpose and enforce it as it was intended. This singular action will unravel the entire subversion machine, invading your very existence. Do it for Charlie. John Bound reporting for Info.